Good morning. The December 4th, 2023 work session of the Douglas County Board of Commissioners will come to order. We welcome the citizens of Douglas County. We also have an empty seat this morning, and I'd just like to state that we appreciate Mr. Robinson for his 15 years of service. We wish him the best in his endeavors in the future. County Clerk, would you take the roll for the record?
Yes, sir. Commissioner Ricky Dobbs, District 1. I believe he's on remote, but can you check Yvette? Vice Chair, District 3, Terenia Carthen. Commissioner Mark Alcaraz, District 4.
Present.
Chairman Phil Miller.
I'm here, thank you. Commissioners, are there any changes to be made to the agenda? Being none, the agenda stands approved as presented. As a reminder, each commissioner will have 3 minutes to make remarks and 2 minutes for rebuttal. Clerk, did we have anyone sign up for public comment?
Yes, sir, we did. Before I start calling people to the podium to speak, I will just give you a reminder to, when you reach the podium, please restate your name and address and subject matter for the record. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to address the board. Once you have reached your 3 minutes, I'll ask you to bring your comment to a close. Also, when you approach the podium, please adjust the mic and speak directly into the mic. So the first speaker we had sign in is Miss Ingrid Landis Davis.
Good morning.
Oops. Mic is moving on me. Good morning. Ingrid Landis Davis, 1670 Harvest Hill, 4th District resident, property owner, taxpayer, and Douglas County's 2020 Citizen of the Year. Mr. Miller, your Facebook apology was brought to my attention. While I appreciate your seeming road to Damascus revelation, as a writer and novelist, I can't really help but notice that, let me see how I put this. There is a certain kind of specific visual grammar, language syntax, and cadence to authoritarian behavior in speech. The way you spoke to us, the citizens of the county, at the last meeting can only be described as a tirade with the purpose of intimidation. I was speaking on budget issues and policies. Codifying a policy is how democracy works and grows. Calling citizens who criticize a policy or preference on a budget issue racist, then to say that you are not a racist, is authoritarian demagoguery that robs words of their function and commonly understood meaning. I was shaking my little head because as an SME on the 2020 census data, where I was the field staff manager for Carroll and Douglas counties, you said Carroll had a larger population, which is not true. Also, Mr. Miller, you said Coroner Godwin has a job, which is true, but it's because the voting citizens elected her to that job twice. The county does not need an authoritarian solution, and the people here will not submit themselves to an anti-democratic, pro-authoritarian movement from ghost of Reconstruction's past. For myself, in the spirit of the season, I just want to say, I accept your apology, okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Our next speaker is Daniel Martin.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. My name is Daniel Martin. I live at 1831 Dover Court in Kensington subdivision. I happen to be the HOA president. I'm here representing 129 homeowners who have talked to me about this situation on Timber Ridge Road over the years. I've lived here 22 years. 1, 2, 3. In 3 seconds, 12 babies have been born. An area of the rainforest the size of a football field has been developed. 1 person dies of starvation in the third world. Bill Gates has earned $850 in 3 seconds. This just tells you how fast things can occur. We have a situation on Timber Ridge Road right here where there are 2 dangerous curves, one coming from the Quick Trip, one coming from the 4-way stop there located by Brighton Academy. Within a third of a mile in any direction that you go down Timber Ridge Road in front of the Kensington subdivision, Kensington Gardens, whatever, there is Provincial Medical, Southeast Dermatology, West Georgia Technical College, the Oaks Senior Center, Brighton Academy, Presley Mill Medical Center, First Baptist Church, Kensington Gardens, Kensington, and a new development of 238 homes that is going vertical as we speak. Now, in the packet that you should have there, that is shows the 3-second timing, that's a PowerPoint presentation that I put together to drive home the serious nature of this situation. This has been addressed in the past. There was no funds there apparently to complete a 3-way, 2 drive lanes, 1 turn lane down Timber Ridge. It's a very serious situation. When you're coming towards Presley Mill Road on Timber Ridge, and you hit that curve in front of Stanford College there, it's a hard turn. There is no shoulder. If one truck, one vehicle, and it just happened last week actually, UPS truck went off the road, thankfully he grabbed it back. If that wheel goes off, you're gonna go right into those trees, and guess what? You're dead. This is a very serious situation. And now, if you look at the A&R traffic study that was produced by Lennart Holmes, you'll find that the traffic is going to increase substantially because of these 238 homes that are being built, which means there's going to be a lot of younger drivers driving that road at the first time, at night, during bad weather, and so forth. The chances of a situation developing where serious injury or death can occur is just a matter of time. Now, I took 3 minutes. That's longer than 3 seconds. Somebody's going to die here, and it's going to happen in 3 seconds, and it's going to happen pretty soon. So my suggestion is somebody look into that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Our next speaker is E.J. Wesley.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. I'm E.J. Wesley, P.O. Box 5995, Douglasville, Georgia, and a proud resident and taxpayer who have opinions, even though some people online feel that they have the wherewithal to tell people who they can and cannot speak the truth to. But I would like to talk about the budget in some ways, and I have a concern about the budget. Sir, you're a veteran, right?
No,
You're not. Are any veterans in here on this board?
that man there is. Thank
Yeah.
you for your service.
And you have some people in your family, I'm sure, are veterans, right?
Do.
And would you want to eliminate a service that support our most vulnerable individuals within our county? Veterans? I'll tell you the service. It's called a Community Service Board. Most people don't know what it is. They see Community Service Board, not understanding what it represents or what it's about. It helps our individuals who have mental challenges within our community. And the cray-cray I see online sometime, and the stress I see online with misinformation coming from the so-called folks, I say some of them may need some help at the Community Service Board. So why would you want to incarcerate rather than help individuals who have mental challenges? We have a lot of homeless individuals here in Douglas County. and also from other community that uses these services. If you look at the homeless population, a lot of them are veterans, sir. Okay? I say, why not audit and look at your largest departments? Look at some of the contracts been awarded to family members or ex-employees. Why is that happening? I'm not talking about 5,000 or 50,000. I'm talking about $1 million contracts. Why are you not looking at those? Why are we not looking at those and auditing those and looking at how you can decrease that budget? Did you know out of 159 counties within the state of Georgia, there are only 22 community service boards? 22. What'd that tell you? Obviously, Douglas County is one of those counties that have one. So obviously, we have a problem. And obviously, other counties utilize that service because it's not just for Douglas County residents. Out of 159 counties, 22 are within the state of Georgia. So that tells you there's definitely a need. Would you not say so, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I say too, we need to look at how we can help, not dilute, and maintain a less criminal involvement, because nobody, I'm sure, wants to go to a jailhouse. So look at where you're talking about we want to incarcerate the sheriff office. Look at some budget cuts there. I'm sure it's a lot of money there. But thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jesse Nation.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. And my name is Jesse Nation. I reside at 1621 Doris Road. And today I'm here to speak on the paying the legal fees for elected county officials. And we are here to stand in support of legislation specifying criteria and rules for when the county should or must reimburse county officials for legal fees. I remind you, Mr. Chairman Miller, that as a sheriff, in your 16 years as sheriff, you were sued multiple times, and your legal fees were paid by the taxpayer of this county. And looking back over your last term in office, lawsuits were filed against you and your department on numerous occasions. Here are some of the cases of record. 2016, October, suicide attempt in custody. March, injury while in custody and failure to provide medical care. February, injury while in custody. 2015, December, denial of due process. June, pursuit resulting in bodily injury. March, medical deprivation. 2014, excessive force, false imprisonment. And 2013, excessive force, reckless driving resulting in head-on collision. February, harassment. And in 2012, there were many lawsuits for wrong death, false report, jail conditions, violations of rights, and so forth. All of these legal fees were paid by Douglas County taxpayers. So we urge you to do the job and codify legislative regulations on this issue. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Sharon Bachtel.
Sharon Bachtel, 6331 South Skyline Drive, and I wanted to talk about the Transit Master Plan. But before I begin, I would like to make a comment. I think the courthouse needs a bigger parking lot. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I wanted to come today to thank the young lady and her other staff members who worked on the TMP study. I went to the public meeting on the TMP a couple of weeks ago, and I was really impressed. This is the study that should have been done 7 years ago when public transportation was first being considered by the BOC. This plan will show two things: who needs transportation and where do they need to go. This plan includes the whole county instead of just 2 districts. For 3 years, the citizens of Districts 3 and 4 have had no public transportation for those in need except for limited vouchers. Cars are becoming too expensive to own. Gas has gone up, insurance has gone up, maintenance has gone up, and the actual cost of a car has gone up. The auto workers are getting a raise, and the consumers will be paying for that raise with higher prices. If 60% of people are living paycheck to paycheck, how can they afford the rising cost of owning a car? I have read that over 17,000 of our citizens live at or below poverty level. If this plan helps them get to a job, then this is a good thing. I have read that there are over 16,000 seniors residing in Douglas County. If this plan helps those who cannot drive or are afraid to drive, then it is a good thing. And most important, there are thousands of handicapped people living in this county. Some cannot drive or get a driver's license. This plan will help them get to their destinations. I think the dial-a-ride and the microtransit are what this county needed from the start. My only concern is the cost. If this can be achieved without raising property taxes, then I support it. Thank you again for this study, and I hope it can be implemented successfully. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Corey Thomas.
Good morning, sir.
Hey, good morning, sir, and good morning, everyone, board of directors, and to everyone here. My name is Corey Thomas, and I come today to speak about continued support for our new One Family Resource Center. This resource center is 21,000 square feet of truly community service providers that assist Douglas County. I'd like to paint a real quick picture for you about myself and leading into this. I served 23 years in the military. But before serving 23 years in the military, I was raised in an environment where there was verbal and physical abuse. From there, joined the community gangs that was in the community. Also got involved in a lot of drugs during that time. But it was one thing that kind of helped me straighten my life out, and that was joining the military. Now, every citizen will not join the military. This One Family Resource Center, as we have built it up to today, has now provided the resources that's needed to help people with transition. I was a young man that was caught up in transition, and I made an amazing turnaround in my life, but there were 4 areas that we needed to target to do that. It was your home, your health, understanding your purpose, and the community involvement. If we could get everyone to come on board to support this initiative, especially our One Family Resource Center, it's about rebuilding our families and also having all the community partners under one roof so that we can talk about different types of assistance that's needed to just help each and every individual family that's coming through. So I share with you today, I'm speaking about continued support for our One Family Resource Center, and for everyone here, I want us all to join as one as we really come together, put our brains together, and think of some ways that we could actually impact our community in Douglas County. And if I didn't say my address, it's 2934 Beaumont Road. Y'all have an amazing day.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Pastor Mormon.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning to you. For the love of money is the root of all evil. It also can be translated, for the love of power is the root of all evil. We have people that say that they were sent here to straighten out the Douglas County situation, when Douglas County was in the best situation they ever been in. They cutting budgets and using a black man, a county administrator fighting the budgets of the best commissioner, tax commissioner we ever had. It's amazing that they fight the first black woman probate judge in her budget, and fight coroner Godwin on her budget in building a beautiful building that take away from you being putting the dead in some garage kind of style thing outside of the building. And I want to say something about Mr. Administrator. He have cut the budget here lately, but I want to know when the last time you cut your budget. $40,000 a month, $480,000 a year. When you gonna straighten it out, Miller? When you gonna straighten out the county lawyer? $800 and some thousand a year to over $1,500,000 that's being billed to the county. I wonder, do we need an investigation? We need an investigation here on what's going on. We need investigating the investigators, because the minority elected officials are being targeted by the whistleblowers of the county who used to work for the commissioner. We got minority elected officials being targeted by individuals from Douglas County now working at the state's ethics commissioner office. Minority elected people are being targeted by residents that have friends with the GBI and Fox News station who is investigating. So who is investigating the investigators? We need to write the DOJ, Department of Justice, to conduct an independent pattern or investigation of the unconstitutional practices that's on that you're using on the minorities that's elected by the people. So if you're going to investigate the P card and contracting bidding, why not contract or deal with everybody that been making contracts? Why not go out and deal with everybody, all of the folk that here in Douglas County on what they've been doing with their P card and their contract and bidding process? So as my last word, as the godfather of civil rights have said, he said it in a very powerful way: we have come too far. We have marched too long. We prayed too hard. We wept too bitterly, bled too profusely, and died too young. We ain't gonna let nobody turn us around to fight toward what we have done in justice. And I want to say it going to my seat. The gallows you set up for other folk might be the gallows that you might be hung on yourself in this new day of 2023. Slavery is over.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Rod Butler.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Sorry about that. I had to get my technology to work.
I don't know.
Before I start, I'm going to talk about
Sir, can you restate your name? I'm sorry.
Rod Butler, and my address is 6142 Arden Court. I'm a almost 15-year resident in the Chapel Hills community. I'm going to talk about absentee and succession policies that we brought up a little while back. But before I do, I want to thank the other two speakers who talked on veterans issues. I'm a 21-year Army retired paratrooper, multiple combat tours, and I think that what they said was something that really needed to be heard, and I hope you guys listen to it. Okay. But anyway, in November 2023, the commissioner absentee and succession policies were discussed by the commission, and nothing has been done since then, or hasn't been discussed again since then. They were supposed to be voted on December the 5th, but have been removed from the commission agenda. These policies should have been adopted many years ago. Elected officials who fail to be present and do not work of the people are derelict in their duties. And as far as the absentee policy, it is not geared or focused on one particular person, just in general. Local legislation that provides for the succession of the county commissioners is nothing new. There are ample precedents for these policies across the state of Georgia. Coweta, which is a similar size in Douglas, has a local succession policy. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
There were no other speakers, Chairman.
I was reluctant today to say anything because sometimes saying something causes an argument. I'm not here to cause an argument. I think I need to explain at least my view. I served this county for 46 years in law enforcement. During that time, I didn't beat anybody. I was sued a few times. I wish you had brought the results of those lawsuits, but that's immaterial. I took this job thinking I could help, and in fairness to the Democratic Party, I didn't look at how you felt like you had been betrayed. I had worked with the white people and the black people and all kinds of colored people in this county for that entire time that I was in law enforcement. And I don't believe I ever abused anybody. And there's some people standing in the back that probably would attest to that. But the governor was going to appoint somebody, and being a Republican, he probably was not going to appoint a Democrat. I thought, and I've always set my goals a little lofty, and maybe this one is a little bit lofty, in that I thought, just as I stated in the beginning, that I was going to try my best to work with everybody, and that dealing with budgets, I thought that it was my job to make sure that whatever we think is fair for somebody's budget and reasonable, I thought that's what it should be. We've done some research on these. I'm sure, obviously, there's some people in here that disagree. None of them have been to hurt anybody. You, sir, brought up the coroner's budget. We did a lot of research, and this sweet lady behind you, she brought up the fact that Carroll County had less people. That was my mistake. And I'll always try to admit my mistake. But I also used Paulding County, which has a lot more people. And I used Cherokee County, who has over 100,000, or somewhere around 100,000 more people than we do. And their budgets were between 150 and 169, I believe, if you would check that. And ours is 600 and something thousand. So I thought a reasonable person might think no matter, a reasonable person might think that's too high. So we looked at that. As far as our probate judge is concerned, I think if you'll talk to Ms. Carthen, I think that I'm trying to help as much as I can in that situation, and if you need that clarified, you can ask her. But there's three categories. We've dealt with two categories in the past, one being sued for civil violations, one being for criminal violations. And we should set precedent for those. This thing with the probate judge is unique because it's a JQC case, and I guess it would be considered ethical. You know, if you may correct me if I'm wrong. So that doesn't fit into either of those categories. So it's kind of new to us. Before my term here, we retained a insurance policy for $50,000 to cover that kind of case, and our probate judge has been given that. I have voted, along with this commission, to pay the money that's above that $50,000. And I don't know if we should have went down this rabbit hole or not, but because started out with 50 and then it went to 40 and then went to 30. I'm not saying she's guilty of any of those. But what I'm saying is some of them would fall on the civil side, some of it might fall on the other side, and some of it might be on the ethical side. If we were going to provide a lawyer for the civil stuff, then that should have been taken out and her have been represented in the civil stuff by an attorney. And then if some of it didn't fit in that, then maybe that's something she should have paid for. And I'm not saying she should, I'm saying that's an option. But so far, we've paid more than the $50,000. And in secret talks with Ms. Carthen, I thought were secret, we discussed why I didn't vote to set a limit, which is what some of you are asking me to do today. I didn't set a limit because if we do that, based on what I've been told by other commissioners, that's going to be somewhere between $50,000 and $100,000. Now, having said that, if she's already at that $100,000, she doesn't have an option from us to get the other money. My purpose in not wanting to vote on that right now, if we vote on it, it's going to keep you from getting the other money. So there's not going to be an option. So that was my thought. I'm not here to discriminate against anybody. I never have. I'm never going to. Money that I'm in charge of, or partly in charge of, it doesn't belong to me. It belongs to the people of this county. And it's my responsibility, I believe, as a commissioner, to manage that as the very best I can. I do believe that over the years, not just since the Democrats have taken over, but over the years, there's been budgets that are too high. That's supposed to be our judgment as commissioners. And if we think they're too high, we're supposed to investigate it, not necessarily cut it, but investigate it. And if it is too high, and if we all agree that it is too high, then we should cut that budget because that money doesn't belong to us, it belongs to you. So that's my purpose in what I'm doing here. I would love for us to be able to communicate, be able to get along. But the fact that somebody in a minority has been elected That's not going, I'm not going to say, oh, that's a minority and she can do what she wants to do. I'm going to try to judge people or judge their budgets based on what their needs are. So after that, I mean, you can do or you can say whatever you want to with me. Again, don't need the job. Here, trying to help. Obviously, not doing the kind of job that some of you want me to do, but that's my goal, is to do something that would satisfy everybody. I never thought that us cutting budgets would cause an uproar. If the budgets were more, in our opinion, than what we needed to be, and if the budgets had at the end of the year for the last 2 years had $300,000 or $400,000, wouldn't you, as citizens, want me to consider taking that money back if they had $300,000 or $400,000 left over, and putting it into some of these other categories that you guys are talking about? So, you know, I probably said enough. I don't want to offend anybody, but my goal here is not to punish anybody or to hurt anybody. I don't hate anybody. I really don't. But all of a sudden, if I make a decision that would be considered a conservative decision, that's a bad decision maybe for somebody that's not so conservative. So, you know, you'll have to figure that out. I'm going to do what I think's right every time. You may have a different opinion of what right is, but my intention is not to hurt any of you. My intentions are not to hurt any department in this county. It's to give them enough money to do their job, but no more than that, because that money is not ours, folks. It belongs to the citizens of the county. Thank you very much. We have a transportation master plan presentation by Ron Roberts. Ron, please come up and begin with your transportation proposal.
Good morning.
Morning.
Merry Christmas
How are
to
you?
everybody. Been some time waiting on this day. We started in late January, February, working on the transit master plan, and we wanted to wrap it up by the end of this year so we could focus on the goals. I wanted to thank the team that I worked with, and I wanted to thank Ms. Bachtel for such a great intro earlier too. We do have Rachel Hatcher here with RS&H, and we have a presentation for y'all today to go through. And Michael Hightower is here as well. He's from the Collaborative, helped us with a lot of the outreach. And so I was going to turn it over to Rachel. I know brevity is key, so we want to get through the presentation and answer any questions that you guys may have.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. I'm going to try my hand at getting this presentation pulled up. I think I got it. Right, can everybody see the presentation? I need your help, Ron. Or what it's doing here.
Not sure. We got here early and loaded this for this reason.
Help is on the way.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Sorry for the technical difficulties. Okay. We're going to try a different. There we go. Okay, there we go. So in my agenda today, we're going to go over the status update. Again, as Ron stated, it is a 12-month process. We're going to go over the key engagement and technical findings, two very important pieces to determining what the appropriate strategies for the Transit Master Plan would be, both from desires from the public, where we don't currently have service, and looking at the future growth and the current demand in the community today. We're going to take you through scenarios and draft recommendations. Important to pause on that to say this is a study and a plan. In taking action on a plan that we will be asking for later in December, you're not committing yourself to any one recommendation, but saying we adopt the plan as a set of strategies that we can move through in our internal local process to determine what is best for the community. We'll show you the financial snapshot analysis and next steps to implementation. The graphic on the screen shows you the various phases of the process that we have gone through over the last 12 months, including an extensive public involvement plan and process that we thank the collaborative firm for their support in taking us through a very extensive process. Existing conditions and future trends, looking at population and employment and travel demands today and what you're likely to see in the future. And it was very fortuitous that you had a comprehensive plan update just several months before we began so that we could see what your plan for your community is and where you're going to need alternative transportation support in order to realize that plan. We also looked at the transit needs as well as your market. So it's important to note that every aspect of the market is not the same. So you may have transit-dependent ridership, but you also have components of transit choice rider. They have very different transit needs, so making sure we're matching the demand with the type of transit user that is likely to use that transportation, i.e. ridership. And then that ultimately is brought together with funding strategies into the Transit Master Plan that we're going to summarize today. 12-month process, we're hoping to take action in December. It would then move to the Atlanta Transit Link Authority for the presentation to them as your partners in this study. So we're going to go through a couple of key engagement slides, and I know this is a lot on the screen, and it is intentional. This was a very collaborative approach to planning. We had a lot of partners that were in the trenches with us, but we also had a lot of partners that came together as stakeholders to say, we're not necessarily part of Douglas County, but we have a stake in this too. We want to make sure we have effective connections. We have a lot of folks coming from our county to your county or our business to your county, and we want to make sure that this is a successful approach to transportation. So some of the key findings of the engagement and technical analysis in each of the categories, the first, starting with the column on the left, is public and stakeholder feedback. There was a lot of feedback received through a very successful survey as well as public workshops and pop-up meetings, and the theme that we saw most frequently was expanded service hours, specifically in the mornings to support employment. Increased frequency, meaning not standing at a bus stop and waiting for the bus to take over an hour to get back to that point. Enhanced access for seniors and youth. We actually had very successful youth forums where we heard directly from the youth what types of trips they would like to encounter or have access. Direct access to the airport, and you're going to hear a lot about that. We heard a lot about that. Improved access to Cobb County, more direct connections to downtown Atlanta, expanded service to new population and employment centers, as well as expanded ADA paratransit access. From an existing and future conditions, that's really looking at the underlying community characters. So that's not transit and it's not public comment, it's how is your community growing and where do we see densities appropriate for transit. So trip attractors are concentrated, no surprise, in your highest population areas, Douglasville, East Douglas, and then external to Cobb County, Fulton Industrial Boulevard, and the Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport. Regional travel for employment purposes is significant. You have over 50,000 people leaving your community every day to get to employment in the surrounding counties, and you have just under 30,000 coming into your community every day for employment. So you've got a significant west to east travel shed occurring every day. East Douglas has the highest concentration of transit propensity, meaning population likely to ride transit. And plans for regional service enhancements require some upgrades to your system that would be really critical in order to move into a more regional service provision category. The last one is a very important one. Rural transit needs are not currently being met at all. You have service areas within your community that are designated as rural and there is no service in those areas. From an operational analysis, you do have a couple of routes that are underperforming as far as ridership is concerned. Financial analysis shows that you do have grant funding at the federal level. You pay your federal taxes, and by population, they send you back what you need to provide those services. There is a category you're not currently utilizing, so there's funding left on the table for Douglas County currently. Your level of service, your frequency, and your directness and stop accessibility does not meet your current demand. However, you are operating an efficient service for what you have on the street. But compared to your peer systems throughout the state of Georgia and in the country, you're offering less service than your peers. And then your ridership subsequently is lower because you have less service on the road. So data collection software is going to be really important as we move into some of the recommended improvements, so you can continue to monitor the success and meet those KPIs that are so important to the county. We did have a statistically valid community survey, over 1,700 survey results, which in the world of planning is a huge success. We've seen studies with communities of similar size get less than 400 survey results, and that's considered success, so 1,700 was really great. The number one purpose that was shared with us by survey respondents for the transit system is to provide mobility options for transit dependent. And I thank Ms. Bachtel for sharing with you some of those categories, like seniors, those are that are disabled or don't own a vehicle or can't drive a vehicle. 56% of the respondents desired more direct connections to downtown Atlanta, 47% desired better connections to Cobb County, and the number one destination was Atlanta-Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport. I do want to pause and say that the survey was a really great cross-section of the community. They were not just transit riders answering this survey. We had a really broad response rate from those that aren't currently riding transit. So we have a great opportunity to serve not just the transit population riding today, but we heard back from folks that say, I would ride it if you do these things. We also had some key feedback from the stakeholders. This information has been shared with you all in your previous work session, so we won't go into detail. But in general, the themes were, we need to focus on our seniors and our youth. We need to ensure that we're promoting our local economy through transit investments to make sure that people don't feel like they need to leave the county for employment, but rather have local connections. And use transit-oriented development or transit in general to promote our economy locally. We did ask the commissioners in our commission work session earlier in the year to give us answers to some guiding questions, some principles about transit that when we begin to design implementation strategies, we follow. The number one question was, should we be traveling outside of the county to provide transit service? And the answer was yes, within reason. We need to make some logical connections, but we don't want to be a service provider outside of our county. We want to make connections that are important. How should we be thinking about new models? We're open to the most effective service models that would best serve the public, was the response. We should consolidate service where possible to be most efficient. We want to be known for providing a safe system that enhances quality of life and improves accessibility for the general public. And then we did ask, what does success look like to you? And the number one response was connectivity. So we took all of those guiding principles in combination with the results from the public and stakeholder feedback and the technical analysis to set your goals. The number one goal is to promote local and regional connectivity. Number two, enhance mobility for all travelers through equitable transit investments. Leverage transportation to enhance community health and quality of life. Promote economic growth by coordinating transportation investments with land use. Provide safe and accessible transportation facilities for all, and maximize operational and service efficiencies. These goals are coordinated with the ATL regional plan, as well as with your comprehensive plan and your recently completed comprehensive transportation master plan. All of that is pulled together for your service strategy framework, which looks at a combination of characteristics. Who are we trying to serve? Where is service needed and feasible, now as well as in the future? What mode best fits the needs and goals of the community, and what funding is available and how can it be used? We won't go into the nuances of this graphic. The important points are highlighted on the right-hand side of the screen. Where you have greater densities in population and employment, you have better success rates and recommendations for higher intensity levels of transit. Meaning if you have a rural area, you're not likely to see recommendations of fixed route transit service or express service. There wouldn't be the demand for it, and the cost benefit would not be there. So we did look for these population characteristics and employment characteristics in all of our recommendations to make sure they're sound and they do have a technical underpinning. So the draft service and scenario strategies, this is an overview. I have some really important guiding documents highlighted on the right-hand side of the screen because we made sure that they were locally and regionally consistent. We looked for enhanced efficiency for your current service to make the most out of the equipment as well as the dollars that are currently existing in the transit system today. Investments in service flexibility, speed, and access. Those were key takeaways by looking at expanded operating hours as well as different modes, including microtransit and rural services. And then a strengthening of those regional connections. There are many listed below, but the important ones we evaluated were access to CobLink, MARTA, downtown Atlanta, and the airport. So first we're going to go through the fixed route bus service scenarios. There's a lot of them in there. I'm going to summarize and I'm going to move quickly through them. If anybody wants me to pause and look at any one route, please let me know, but we're going to zoom pretty quickly through. Your existing route as it stands today has 4 fixed routes shown as 10, 20, 30, and 40 on the screen here. You do also have regional express service. 2 routes enter the county. Only one has 2 stops at the Multimodal Center and the West Douglas Park and Ride. This is transit as you have it today. This is the recommended service strategies where you have a rerouted Route 10, a rerouted 20, a rerouted 30, and a rerouted 40. So reroutes of every fixed route service, as well as a new Route 50. And then a direct connect, which is a limited service. It's not quite express because it is making multiple stops within Douglas County, but its final stop is at the H.E. Holmes MARTA station. We do have detailed graphics and slides for each route. These were available at the public workshop, and we did go into the details on each of these. I'm only going to spend some time on one so you get oriented, but essentially these graphics show you the dashed line in blue is the current service route. The darker blue line is the recommended route, and we have any other routes that are interlining to take up some of the space that we're saying we're going to eliminate on that route. So the importance of these reroutes in the Douglasville area is that they're more direct. We currently have a looping system, and in transit, a loop is not a great thing because if you get on the bus at stop 1, but you really want to head west, and that's stop 30, you have to ride through all of the other stops to get to that destination. So a loop takes a substantial amount of time, and the rider feels like it's very slow. You're getting there within a reasonable amount of time, but they have to ride in one direction. So the reroute provides what we call direct service, where they can go across the street and pick up the same bus in either direction, so it's twice as fast, using the same resources that you're using today. So the blue route, Route 10, is rerouted in that way, as well as Route 20. So that's the north and south side of the existing loop. The addition of Route 50 is the north end of that loop, so that you get direct service in your most populated area with the highest transit propensity, using the same resources you're using today, just doing it faster. The reroute of Route 30 is out near Tributary. This is one you're going to see a lot more on future slides in this presentation, but there is a discrepancy in your federal funding categories, and Tributary is currently non-compliant. So this one requires a reroute, and you also have very low ridership in that area. So we did do a full reroute of Route 30 and expanded service to come back into town to make those critical connections over to 2 MARTA routes that are on greater than 30-minute frequencies and run until 2 a.m. So there's really great MARTA service that you can make a connection out on Fulton Industrial Boulevard where there's significant employment opportunities, while also providing better and more direct service to your Walmart as well as the Six Flags industrial parks. The reroute of Route 40 eliminates some underperforming areas so that you can make it faster, but it also provides more direct service to Sweetwater State Park, which currently is not provided, with an alternating loop, because we know we don't need to serve the park at all times of the day, but during the weekends and off-service hours, you can have that alternating leg where you can provide trips to employment during normal business hours and trips to the park in the low-performance portions of the day. The new Direct Connect, again, is that direct connection to the H.E. Holmes MARTA rail station. This is the more cost-effective and more efficient way to get folks to the Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport, because from that rail station, you do have direct service to the airport. We did, however, evaluate a Douglas County Fixed Route Airport Connect, because we felt like that was very important to be able to demonstrate to the public as well as you as commissioners what that would cost and whether or not it would be cost feasible. It is a very costly route and one that I would believe you would need some financial partnerships in order to make that beneficial to the community. But we do have those figures so that we could be responsive to the public and provide that information to you all. So we did group those into recommendations of implementation, short range being those fixed route improvements using your current resources as you have them today, and maintaining the 60-minute headway that you currently operate today. Medium fixed would be adding that direct connect, which would be a 60-minute headway connecting at the H.E. Holmes rail station. And then your long term would be reducing the headways to 30 minutes on all fixed routes with the exception of the direct connect. And then adding in the airport connection if those regional relationships and partnerships became feasible. For microtransit recommendations, I'm just going to spend a moment talking about what microtransit is. It's a flexible transit service that uses a mobile application for you to schedule your trips between a pickup and a drop-off location. It's similar to private ride-hailing services. I don't love to say the name, but the most familiar version of a private ride-hailing program would be Uber or Lyft. So this is the public entity version of the model like an Uber or Lyft. Services are offered only within specific zones that are designated by the local government and transit agency, and the average wait time is about 30 minutes from the time you schedule it on your phone to the time the bus arrives. The real defining characteristics between the private version and the public version is that you do have a clustering of trips. There are no private trips, and that's how the cost benefit is realized. It does have the key benefits of greater accessibility, and the pickup and drop-off locations are flexible. They're generally within about 1 block of your home or your pickup location, so you do have to walk a short distance to gather up with the other riders. We won't go through the details, but this is from the perspective of the rider, how they would schedule a trip and how they would arrive. And the important takeaway from this one is that they are grouped trips, and you do have to walk about a block from your origin to your destination. The graphic on the screen shows those 6 zones that we designed for microtransit services. The intention is not that all of those zones would be implemented in the mid-range, but would come in as a pilot program. So you would select 2 of the zones with a third-party operator that would implement microtransit service as a pilot to determine whether or not there was success in this community. There are many Georgia transit agencies that are implementing microtransit with great success. We expect that would be the case for Douglas County as well, but we would not recommend implementing all 6 zones in your initial startup. So the peak fleet, if you did implement all 6 zones, would be 15 vehicles. You would mirror your current service hours, and you would realize approximately 2,300 trips per week. There are operating statistics on each. We won't go into the details on those. The important takeaway is the population served and the peak vehicles. So peak vehicles is what drives your cost up. Every vehicle requires a driver, maintenance, fuel, et cetera. So selection of those zones for the pilot program will be critical. This snapshot just provides you with the background information that you can see in the summary and in the final report. Each zone is assessed in detail to show you where it connects to the fixed route system and where these were mapped individually, where those key origins and destinations are in your community, including parks, schools, senior care facilities, places to get your hair fixed, go to church. So we made sure that every zone had important points of origin and those critical points of destination. Can I get from my home to the pharmacy? Can I get from my home to transit services to get to the doctor's appointment? So we made sure that those connections made sense. Next scenario is on-demand services. Much like microtransit, on-demand is an advanced reservation system. The distinguishing characteristics of rural demand service versus microtransit is it requires 24 hours advanced reservations, not typically 30 minutes. The reason for the 24-hour advanced reservation is that this is for lower population and lower use areas where you don't have a concentration or as much demand for transit. So you don't need a bus out there all the time picking people up. If nobody reserves it the day before, nobody drives the next day. This is what's currently operated in Carroll County, and so there is great success with that system as well as some opportunities for partnership. This graphic is critically important. This is dealing with the rules of federal funding and transit database reporting criteria. So we want to keep you compliant with your federal and state partners. Anything in pink is considered by the U.S. Census Bureau as urban. That is an urban designated population. Anything in green is considered rural. So you cannot use the same buses and the same funds to drive between urban and rural. Very different rules, very different funding categories. So currently you can see that your services are clustered in the urban area, but you have no services in the rural area, and there is funding, 5311 rural funding, dedicated to that area that you just haven't claimed. So the opportunity for service does come with additional resources. And just to clarify what urban versus rural trips mean, if I'm in Villa Rica, with designated as the D point, and I'm trying to get into Douglasville, which is a B point in the urban area, I can do that with a rural trip. As long as it starts or ends in the rural area, you can go into the urban area. What you cannot do with those funds is go from A to B or go from B to C. Anything red to red is off limits. Green to red is okay, red to green is okay, green to green is okay. You just can't go red to red. So that is a critical and important distinction when we show you the next slides. The next three are your service scenario options for rural service, the first of which we call the entire rural area. And you'll see that we do have an outline for the microtransit zones designated that extends beyond Douglas County into Villa Rica. You'll have more information on that in the future slides, but the major difference in this scenario versus the next is that you do have the area next to tributary that's highlighted that you would be providing service to that is considered rural. That is an area where we removed fixed route service. This scenario is only recommended if that zone for microtransit isn't selected first. We want to make sure that everybody has service. So if the microtransit zones in Douglasville get selected first for the pilot program, then you would still want to operate rural service near tributary until such time that that microtransit comes online. If all the microtransit zones came online at the same time, this scenario shows you where you would eliminate that service to reduce redundancy. It would also remove the service in Villa Rica. One concern about this model is that Villa Rica would then not have good service into Douglasville if they wanted to go to the west side for service. So they would have access in the rural areas, but they could not go from that point into the urban area because they're no longer being provided rural service. And in this model, we did a combination. We removed the rural service from any microtransit zone, but we did still include the full area in Villa Rica to make sure that if that partnership comes online, they do have access to the rural areas in the county and can get into Douglasville as well. So again, operating statistics for each, we won't go into the details on that. The key takeaways is that the larger the service area, the more vehicles will be required. So you will require some capital infrastructure in order to be able to support additional services. We won't go into significant detail on those, but mobility hubs and enhanced stops will be important investments for you all in the future. You currently have one level 1 stop, which is your multimodal center, one level 2 stop, which is your West Douglas Park and Ride, but you don't have a strong network feeding into those to support the needs of folks on the other ends of the service area. So we need to start looking at where we need to invest in level 3 stops, which are microtransit stops, and where we need to invest in more level 2 stops to support your level 1. So we'll be recommending Thornton Road and Liberty Road as long-term recommendations for those level 2 investments, and then recommending a bus stop improvement program where you're investing in the most successful stops to support this network of 1, 2, and 3 hubs so that folks have the opportunities to purchase tickets, to get information about the system, have a safe place to stand and wait, and support the system and its ridership. And then as the system expands, you'll also need storage and safety improvements. Capital rolling stock, in order to expand the service, you will need additional vehicles as well as maintaining your current fleet. So we look not only at new vehicles that would be needed, but your current fleet that's operating today and when it's going to need to be replaced. You currently have 14 vehicles for fixed route and ADA paratransit, and that provides enough capacity for the short-term recommendations that we did put forth. Policies and partnerships that are critical. We're really excited about the first one. The new rerouting of the green route, Route 30, gets you very close to Sweetwater State Park, but it doesn't get you to the main Welcome Center. And it's very difficult to take a bus full of people and get all the way into the Welcome Center. It just slows you down too much. But what we're seeing in the Atlanta region, and with great success, is the implementation of bike share programs as a micro-mobility hub, making connections to these park facilities. And one of the things we heard from the public, we saw in your comprehensive plan, we saw in your comprehensive transportation plan, was a need for better access to parks. And we think this is a really great way to partner with Sweetwater State Park and have a micromobility opportunity for folks to have healthy transportation options and to make that first and last mile connection to where the bus can drop off. And then in addition to that, we did work closely with Six Flags to look at their current stop facilities where MARTA, Connect, Douglas, and CobLink all come together. And we saw some deficiencies, and we saw that folks aren't being shuttled from that location to the front. So it would disincentivize me to want to ride to that stop if I didn't have really good, strong access to the front door, the entrance of the park. So we did work with them to reinstate their shuttle program, and the answer wasn't no. So we want to continue that conversation to see if there's opportunity to provide that important connection between that mobility hub and the front door. And then system integration, wherever we're connecting with another large transit provider, making sure that the stations and the stops have opportunities for us to join, have room for our buses, and that they will have information about our system at those locations. Programs and policies, looking at mobility plans and policies that are needed in order to support all of this. It includes a bus stop improvement program that gives you the opportunity to assess which stops will be most successful. First and last mile infrastructure programs, that means sidewalks. If you are within 3/4 of a mile of a stop, Federal Transit Administration says you have access to service. But as a practitioner, if you do not have a sidewalk, you do not have access to that service. So looking where we need those critical first and last mile connections and having an infrastructure program through the county to support that. Transit-oriented development, making sure that you codify certain things so that, as you say, we want Douglasville to grow in a way that is supportive of transit. And these new developers coming in, we want to make sure they know that we want transit to serve that area. Your ordinances need to support that. So having transit-oriented development policies, as well as allowing the transit department to review any rezoning or any development that is along a current route or a planned route to make sure that those opportunities are realized up front and not in retrospect once a development is underway. You're already doing a fantastic job of promotional service awareness and marketing, making sure you continue to do that. And I really love this recommendation because this is the opportunity for those who don't need transit every day to have access to transit. All taxpayers should have the right to use the public transportation system. And when you provide trips for annual events where there's a shuttle to the event, that is them using transit. And we see a lot of success in that, so we recommend continuing that as well as fare-free events. And you will need updated ride guides that show those regional connections and how folks can, in their time points, get from one service to the next. Rider training events and biannual open house is a need, making sure that folks have the opportunity to learn how to use the system and have the opportunity to share their concerns. Technology and innovation, automated passenger counters. I know we're getting into the details, but this is a really important one. This came out of the state of Georgia's transit plan, and they said every transit system in the state of Georgia needs APCs. And you have something similar, but you don't currently have APCs. You have driver-managed APCs, which means when someone gets on, they click whether they got on or off. And the level of accuracy is not as important as what the state of Georgia is requiring. So upgrading to an automated passenger counter data system that will help you realize your KPIs. Without that information, you can't be held accountable to your own KPIs, key performance indicators. Upgraded fare collection, smart passes. You see the two graphics on the bottom of the screen. The whole region has gone to one-click fare collection. CobLink, Greta Certa, MARTA. Everybody's using one fare collection system. So if we want to play with them, we need to have a consolidated fare system. So if our rider wants to get from Connect Douglas onto MARTA, they have one pass to allow them to do that. Complete trip planning at the regional interface on your website and your app. So if someone opens their app and they say, okay, I can get on at 8 o'clock, but when am I getting my transfer to MARTA? They can see that in one place. And then upgraded routing software to be able to schedule these trips. You don't have the technology you need today to be able to move into that, but it is in your draft budget. We did have a round 2 of public engagement, and if anybody here in the room was at that meeting, I thank them. It was such a great turnout. We had so many people that came and asked really fantastic questions. They had a lot of really fantastic feedback, and in fact, we made some adjustments to our recommendations before our presentation to you today based on some really solid comments that we received. So this is a couple of pictures from the meeting, and what respondents felt most strongly about in that meeting, as well as online comment forms that we had open for 30 days, is microtransit, rural demand response, and direct connect service to the HE Homes lot. Those were the things we heard most favorable comments about. Connectivity to important locations. There were specifics that were shared with us, but in general, county to county was what we heard most about. Additional feedback, there was a lot of really fantastic ideas, like can we use transit to support voting? What a great idea. That falls within that category that we shared about budgeting and scheduling some special events. And then making sure that we're protecting our seniors, as well as looking for opportunities to support local community events. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that we did have one participant that did have concerns about low ridership with the current system, as well as tax contributions to the transit agency in general. So overwhelming positive feedback, but we did have some folks that expressed concern about funding the system. In the financial assessment, this is a snapshot that was presented earlier in various presentations to the public as well as the county over the course of the study. This is your 2021 figures. That's an important distinction because those are the only numbers that are currently closed out and accepted by Federal Transit. So those are the only ones we can really truly reflect on. But your budget for operating expenses in 2021 was just over $2.6 million, and your sources for capital funding expending at that time was $111,000. But you can see that your budget has had some variable years in there. We do have one projected figure in there, which it has not yet been accepted, but to show you how you have had some years of fairly high spending and some years of fairly low spending. And the real variable there, we did have COVID-19 pandemic, but capital expenditures really changes from year to year. So you'll see some higher years where you had to replace buses or expand some of your infrastructure, and other years where you did not have as much expense in that category. The two highest categories of spending consistently are salaries and wages. That's an area at the national level you're not going to see go down anytime soon, so that's an important distinction, as well as 45% to deliver the services. So that means paying your drivers, operating the vehicle, fuel, oil, etc. So this is just a breakdown of everything I just said: short-term, mid-term, and long-term, fixed route, ADA, complementary paratransit, on-demand rural services, and microtransit, and the years that we believe they should be implemented. And this, again, is just a review or overview of the capital expenditure, short-term, mid-term, long-term. This is what I just detailed in each of those slides. Before we move to the next budget slide, I do want to point out that this is assuming no additional funding partnerships, which we have to present in that way because we can't guarantee that you'll have additional financial partnerships. So the cost is accurate. The revenue is very understated, because if you have a partnership with Greta Certa to provide regional service, that will not be exclusively on the taxpayers of Douglas County. But we don't know that you'll get that partnership. So we recommend those improvements, and we show the cost so that you can go to those partners and say, we believe this is a great opportunity. We believe it's warranted and needed. Will you partner with us? So don't let the numbers scare you. They do look artificially inflated, and that's because of those financial partnerships that would be required. So you can see in the first column for operating, the existing 2023 is about $2.9 million. And in the short term, you can see that number goes up for fixed route, bus, and paratransit. That number goes up very slightly. You're at 2.9 million. In the short term, you're just over 3 million. So the real cost differential in the short-term implementation is that microtransit pilot program. So that will be the distinguishing cost differential that will take you from that current service level essentially up to the next level. Your federal operating funding is, again, considered consistent. So you would not be receiving, in this scenario, additional federal funding, but that is plausible through the ARTP and presentation to the Atlanta Transit Link Authority. That would be determined in the next year's budget. So in year one, we're saying you're not going to require any additional funding for services. That's a planning year. In your short-term implementation, you would go from roughly the same service cost for your fixed route, but determine whether or not microtransit was feasible for implementation. Your fare revenues would double if you did have microtransit, because ridership is projected to be pretty substantial in comparison to your fixed route. So you can see that net cost number is about $2.4 million, which is, again, a very conservative number. It's assuming no new federal funding sources. And that would be true for the midterm and the long-term recommendations. The major differentiating factors in midterm would be your growth in the on-demand program, about $390,000 for that program to come online. That could move into the short term with Carroll County partnerships. So if you're able to effectively partner with an existing system, that could be cheaper and could be implemented faster. So that's a critical distinction for that one. Microtransit, we're moving to a larger price point because we're now implementing additional zones. We're assuming that pilot program was a great success. One important note about this scenario and strategy is many times what we see is when you implement a microtransit zone, it cannibalizes your fixed route ridership. Everybody loves it. So we typically see a decommission of fixed routes in areas where microtransit is highly successful. So in this scenario, this is the most conservative version. We're saying you're not taking away any fixed route and you're implementing all of the microtransit zones. You would likely see that where you have great success, you'd be decommissioning some of the costs associated with fixed route. And then again, fare revenues go substantially higher. You have more service on the streets, and then you have your net service cost. And the midterm does include your Express Connect. That is a key partnership opportunity with regional service providers. I would be willing to say that you should not consider implementing services without exploring all potential financial partnerships when you begin leaving the county. And in addition to that, in the long term, the differentiating factor is that, again, you've grown to your maximum microtransit zones, you have your rural services, you have all fixed routes in place, and now you're layering in the airport route, and you can see that number jump. The airport route is quite costly. So in the bottom side of this table, you see the existing capital expenditure, short-term, midterm, and long-term capital needs, and those are typically 80% federal and 20% local in cost. So our recommended timeline and schedule, we have some key dates. Your first year, you would really begin applying for grants and beginning discussions with financial partners and funding partners, making sure that those policies and contracts and key planning activities are initiated, and implementing any cost-neutral recommendations that your agency is able to implement in the first 18 months. There are federal requirements for comment periods of at least 90 days for the public to get accustomed to any service changes, so those would likely happen towards the end of a calendar year, but we are recommending only cost-neutral improvements while you go through the grant application and planning process. The next year, you would move into revising contracts and MOUs, initiating capital procurement, and beginning implementation of some of the short-range implementation recommendations. Then in the next year, implementing more of those short-range pilot programs and recommendations, continuing grant application efforts, that would be a continual ongoing effort, and then beginning procurement and outreach for midterm programs. It takes approximately 18 to 24 months from procurement to get vehicles and rolling stock on site. So we need to start planning in year 2 for things we want to implement in year 4. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. I'd be remiss if I didn't reflect on the wonderful support that we've had from Connect Douglas and your staff, as well as the Atlanta Region Transit Link Authority and their staff during this process. And I do have the folks from the consulting side who have tirelessly spent time in this community and have had a really fantastic opportunity to get to know you all and to get to know the needs of your community. So thank you for that.
Commissioners, do you have any questions, comments? Vice Chair.
No, I'm gonna start out by saying great presentation. A little long, but great presentation. It's a lot of information. Some stuff you kind of skimmed over, and especially where it comes to us, we always look at the financials. One of the things I really want to talk about that you hit on was our policies regarding it. We need to implement those policies so that whatever we do in terms of budget aligns with those policies, and being able to go out and get the grants and the funds that we will need, right? Everybody wants transit, nobody wants to pay for it. It's just like everything else in this county. Everybody wants it, but nobody really wants to pay for it, right? So we have to align our policies and our partnerships, right? So one of the things that I heard when I was in one of the meetings was, how do we get to the airport? Can we get to the airport? Which is huge, right? Because Douglas County is only 20 to 25 minutes away from Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport. To go to H.E. Holmes, to then get off that train and then have to traverse to get to the north-south bound to go to the airport, to me, just doesn't make sense. You just rather take, what you've been using. But maybe getting with South Fulton CID. Those types of partnerships, to me, is what we need to be looking at. And I know Collaborative Firm probably can help us with that. But we need to look at all of those types of aspects so that it just won't be a burden on the taxpayers of Douglas County, because regional transportation and linking it is, it's good for the state. It's good for businesses. It's economic development in a whole nother, level. So, but I'm going to take a look at it. I'm pretty sure, with the board and probably with the new board that'll be coming on next 2025, we'll be able to really put in place how this will look in 2030 and beyond. The good thing about it is the planning starts now, so that when we get there, we won't be behind the 8 ball, which in some aspects Douglas County has been for a while. So I'm hoping that we will continue to elect people that will continue to progress us in the right way and have fiscal responsibility in that. But thank you. I yield, Chairman.
Thank you. Anyone else? This rural funding, we have a grant for that?
The 5311 funding is managed by GDOT Intermodal, and we've never, this recent development since the census, so we've never applied for it. But we will let GDOT know of our intent, and we've already begun a lot of discussions towards that. So,
oh, I was under the impression we were getting that. We're not yet.
Not the 5311, the 5307.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you so much. Tomorrow, we will be recognizing Mr. Gary Dukes and Miss Tammy Cochran for awards that they received for the Georgia Recreation and Park Association. Next on our agenda is the meeting minutes. Commissioners, please review the minutes before tomorrow's meeting. County Administrator, do you have any business to come before the board?
No, sir.
We will now begin with our agenda items. Clerk, please begin with the first agenda item.
Yes, sir. We have number 4, a resolution adopting the 2024 budget, and Ms. Rosalind Miller is here.
Good morning. Just want to remind everyone, I do have some changes. However, the bottom line budget has not changed. And it's $127 million. And if you recall, per policy, we have to use the prior year's revenue. And what that does, it prevents us from having an inflated budget. It keeps us with, our expenditures where we know for a fact that our revenues are going to come in. And that number for us is $127 million. So again, the bottom line has not changed. However, there has been some changes looking at grant funds. First, I just want to say that you have an outstanding grant team, and they're back there, they're probably smiling. Well, they're not smiling now, but they're back there, outstanding grant team. As you recall, we've been for several months and months trying to pull out grant expenditures out of your general fund budget. We're almost there. And some of the items that I'm going to mention is due to matches. That now we're at a point where we know how much county match is in your general fund. And I would like to go over those now. And we held over some money in our contingency fund for this purpose. We knew that we were still going through reconciling the grants, and when we provided the proposed budget, we had not completed that reconciliation. So we set aside some money in the contingency. So that's why your bottom line is not changing. We are increasing for departments because they have match grant employees. However, the offset will be your contingency. So the total contingency offset is $556,000. I'm going down the line, and for communication, this was actually a system error. There was a new employee that was hired in 2023. However, they were not pushed over to your 2024 budget. So we are capturing that new employee, and that was about $77,000, and that's salary and benefits, and that's in communications. So communications budget has increased by $77,000. The next, we have district attorney. They have $385,000 in grant employees that are provided matched, and this is an obligation and agreement that the board did approve. So we're adding that back to the district attorney's office. The next is Superior Court Felony Drug Court. We're adding back $27,000, and this is also a grant employee. The next is the state court. However, I'm still taking a look at this, but it looks like we cannot justify $61,000 worth of expenditures. I have before you, I would like to reduce it. However, I would like to speak to state court's office first before I reduce their budget. And I will let you know later today and also present it for tomorrow if the budget has reduced. And again, that's state court. The next is public defender's office. There's $81,000 increase to their budget, and that's also grants, a grant match. The next is Board of Equalization. We missed a part-time employee. It's usually the board fees, but there's actually a part-time that works there. So it's $47,000. So we're increasing that budget by $47,000. The next is Community Service Board. We're reducing the budget. Initially it was $600,000. We're reducing it by $375,000. However, there is item 18 that I can explain, to justify the request to reduce the budget. And the next is we have the Activity Center. And Commissioner Carthen, you did point this out. You asked me to review, and we did review, and the personnel was not pushed over. So we're adding $373,000 to Parks and Rec or the Activity Center. And again, it nets to zero. All the items that I've mentioned has net to zero because we're offsetting it with the contingency fund. And I know that the county administrator has been working with the board and speaking with the board on their adjustments, if any. I can take note today or later today, however the board wants to provide me with that information.
Any questions? Vice Chair.
Okay, one of the categories that you didn't expound upon was technology.
Yes, and I did speak with the director, but I did not get the details to justify the 1.7 million.
The budget.
Right,
that
for
was
just that one
reduced.
line item.
Yeah.
That is correct.
So make sure you do that, because he wasn't aware that his budget was reduced because no one had spoken to him. And so it's important that we rectify that. Like, we make sure that we align it.
Definitely. And I did speak with him.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. The second one, CSB, right? Like, we've heard, and there are people in here who will tell you CSB is the major arm. It's the behavioral health department of Douglas County, and it doesn't just affect us, it affects our surrounding counties. And I think, you know, what I really want this board and this administration to understand is that CSB is what we deem as a part of safety. Right? So if you think that the coroner's office, the fire EMS, the sheriff's office, Douglasville City Police Department is all safety, so is CSB, because you are only as healthy as your community members and those that you help with mental health and behavioral health disabilities. So for us to cut CSB means we cut veterans. It means we cut youth with behavioral health disorders. It means that we let go of those who, the physicians that come into the county to help to go into the jails. We cut those ride-alongs with the sheriff's department and the fire and EMS when they go out on calls and they need someone to ride along with them for particular calls that we know people may have not taken their medication or may just be having a bipolar episode. There is so much more that CSB does, and for us to now turn around and even cut them from the 1.2 that the board, previous to the board members who are present here today, we put that allocation in there for a reason. This is our community. These are our people. And if we don't stand up and advocate for them, then we are going to have a less safe and sicker community. And to me, that is not good government, and that is not a good way to utilize the tax dollars that those individuals too also put into the tax base that we use. So I'm opposed to that. Understood the BOE. Got that one. Didn't know that we had cut that one. Forgot about that. I'm okay with the rest. If I have any questions, I'll let you know. One thing, so one of our policies that we implemented was that we would not use fund balance to balance the budget, right? Got it. So we're using our contingency to kind of help offset some of those costs with the grant funded positions that we have coming on board.
Right, and it's different from fund balance.
I get it.
Okay, yeah.
I get it. I get
Right.
it. But I wanted that to be
Oh,
transparent,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like I
Definitely.
want it said.
Yes.
So that, you know, whoever is coming behind us recognizes what we did. The community recognizes what we did.
Gotcha.
In order to make the budget work, because we did roll back the millage rate, but the size of government and the obligations that we have did not roll back.
Right.
That money still needs to be accounted for, and still have to those expenditures. But for now, I yield. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I think it'd be beneficial for maybe our county administrator to mention or to discuss this deduction in regards to CSP, just for the public.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, I just think of the finance of someone. I think it'd be important for our citizens to get an explanation in regards to the CSP board.
CSB.
Is there?
CSB, he would like for you to explain the cuts that we've made to CSB.
We're going to address that in item 8.
We'll get to item 18. We'll just wait to item 18. That'll be fine.
Anything else? Next.
Next on our agenda is number 5, approval to receive the GHRAC grant funds in the amount of $4,708 with a 10% match to be funded through the Clerk of Court's office to preserve and digitize historical records and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents pending final legal review. Kara McDuff.
Good morning.
Morning.
She basically just said exactly what I'm standing before you to ask permission to receive funds from the Georgia Historical Records Advisory Council in the amount of $4,708 with a 10% match that Madam Stenbridge has agreed to pay in order to preserve and digitize about 125 historical documents that span anywhere from 1866 all the way to 1937. And so we would be cleaning those documents through the state conservator with Georgia Archives. From there, we would send them to the Digital Library of Georgia, where they will be digitized and made accessible for the public.
Questions, comments? Vice Chair?
And just to be clear, those funds, the match is already inside of Madam Stenbridge's budget.
She has already provided the line item from which that 10% match will come from.
Okay. Speak it.
Yes, 10%. And then part of that grant, we will also have some of those historical documents on display in a shadow box to help promote the history of the county.
Get you. So that 10% match, again, it's already accounted for within the line item budget.
Yes, ma'am. I have been told it is there.
All right. Thank you. I yield.
Thank you.
All right. Business items?
Yes, sir. Number 6, approval of a contract with Cott System, Inc. in the amount of $45,100 for Resolution 3 online index books hosted services to be funded through the Clerk of Court's office, and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents pending final legal review.
Morning.
Well, again, she said what I was going to say. We're trying to get this contract because when we had COVID, we were not able, the employees could not work outside of the office, and it was very difficult to get our work done. So this would give us the cloud, and I'm not IT, so I don't know all the technical parts of it, but we had already included this in our budget, and it's about $2,600 a month. That's how it comes out of our budget. We have to have it signed by December 31st. We've already missed the first deadline, and they went up again on the contract. So we've been working on this contract for about 2 years, so we desperately need it signed.
Any comment?
Any comments?
Thank you.
Is that it? Thank you. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you.
And the citizens too, we appreciate y'all too. Y'all have a good day.
You too, dear.
Number 7, authorization to amend the tax commissioner's budget in the amount of $53,000 from fund balance for employee position adjustments. Tax Commissioner Greg Baker.
Good morning.
Commissioners, how's everybody? Well, couple of things, and I wish I only had one thing to say, but as usual, I don't. Let's tackle the first thing first. Last time I was before you, we were supposed to correct my budget by the $53,000. You guys asked staff to go back and take care of it. When we finally got to the meeting, they said they couldn't do it. You had to do it. So we're back here again to correct the $53,000. So you need to vote on it to correct that budget amendment. And that's the first part of the scenario.
What's the 53,000 for? The 2 employees that you asked for earlier?
That was for that was to fix the budget that was done wrong last year. That will take care of the 2 people for right now. The 2 people have been hired.
Yeah.
They're sitting there. They are not on payroll because the county a manager or administrator told his staff not to process it. They're sitting there, they won't be paid. You're gonna be in federal violation because if you don't pay them by the due date, the labor commissioner is gonna come down on your head. Why he told them that, I don't know, but that's what HR told me. That he said that don't do anything. Where he gets that authority from, I don't know. He doesn't understand he can't tell a constitutional officer what to do. But for some reason, he thinks he can, and he's telling staff not to do stuff. And if you were still over the sheriff department, you'd be fuming. And I'm fuming, but I'm gonna hold my composure. But I'd appreciate it if you tell the county administrator that he can't hold any constitutional officers. It's only one signature needed by a
This
constitution.
$53,000, is that coming out of your budget? Your present budget?
It's the money you never gave me.
Okay, is it coming out of your present budget?
You mean, am I gonna pay it out of my budget once you give it to me?
Well, I noticed that you had 392,000, I think, at last year's, left over, and you got over 400,000 this year.
Well, Sheriff, if you
well,
want to go there, we'll go over your
No, I
budget.
don't
Now,
wanna
let me
go
finish.
anywhere.
Let
I'm
me finish.
asking.
Okay, I'm gonna answer for you.
Okay.
When you were sheriff, you used to have 500,000 left in your budget sometime.
Yep.
And don't tell me you didn't, because I've looked at it. Sometimes you had 300,000 left. So your comment on what you told the people earlier about money left over in budgets, don't go there with me. Because I'm gonna have money left over in my budget.
Well, let's go there. Let's
No,
go
we're
there.
not gonna go there.
Let's go there.
I got the floor, okay?
All right? Have
Don't
at it.
interrupt me, I won't interrupt you, but don't go there with me. So I'm gonna have money left over in my budget because I haven't funded some stuff that I haven't gotten to yet. So when I get to the next year, I may fund it. I have some expenses that you guys held up, and how you did this, I don't know either, that should have been paid for Tyler Technology, and they were told to be held. So it's almost $200,000 that is in my budget for Tyler Technology that was held. So let's not talk about that. We're talking about my budget that was funded wrong, and my budget that has not got the funds in it that I need to operate. It was a question asked by Commissioner Carthy last time of what finance was projecting for collections. They said 100%. We've never had a 100% collection rate. We have 96, 98. I said 95, and that's the best you've ever had. If you asked me that today, I'd say you're gonna have 85 next year. Because I don't have the budget, because you guys cut it, and nobody can give me an explanation why it was cut. Okay, if you're gonna cut something, give me an explanation why you cut it. Don't just cut it and expect me to go away. That's not gonna happen. So don't tell me I got money left over. Ask me what I got money left over for. And don't do it in this setting where you want a grandstand. Don't grandstand with
grandstander,
me at
mister.
all. Call me to your office and we can sit and talk about it.
I've called you to my office.
Yeah, but you didn't talk about this. This has been this
Okay.
has been
All right.
to the county administrator and to finance and even to legal of what I've been asking for.
Yeah.
And I have yet to get a detailed description of what my budget is to be for next year. And that's illegal by itself. It should have been, when you publish in the paper what the budget is, you should be able to give every citizen a detailed itemized of every budget in the county. You haven't done that. I've asked for the budget for a month now. I still haven't gotten it. Nobody can give me a detail of what, line item by line item of what my budget's gonna be. And we've asked for it, and every week we get told we're gonna get it, Friday we'll get it, and we still don't have it. And
You
you
don't have your
publish the budget, and then you republish a budget, or you amended a budget, and you didn't publish it. You're supposed to republish what you amended. You didn't do that. So when you're gonna go somewhere with me, I'll throw a whole bunch of things out what you haven't done. And you keep saying you are asked to do this job. You were asked to do the job, now do the job. But don't come up here and tell me that I got 300,000 left in my, I
You-
got 300,000.
You do
But I'm
have,
gonna
you
use
got
it.
400,000,
I'm
sir.
gonna use it,
Huh?
too. I got 200,000 that was held because of your county administrator. So don't grandstand with me up here. Call
not
me to your office and let's do it.
That-
All right.
Listen, my attitude might not work with you, but yours attitudes ain't gonna work with me either.
That's fine.
Well,
I
that's
agree to
fine, too.
disagree.
I'm willing to be reasonable with you, but
no, you're
I
not.
was asking a simple question. The 53,000 that you're asking for, can you take it out of the $400,000 that's left over? That's all I wanted to know.
But you asked me that last time.
What'd you say?
And I said, no, I'm not doing that.
So I'm supposed to increase your budget?
Did we increase your budget when you were sheriff? Did you have $500,000? Did you take it out? You went out and bought more cars, so you wouldn't have to give it back.
Okay, thank you, sir. I appreciate you.
I'm not done.
Well, have at it.
Now, my 2024 budget is still saying it's $2,858,000. That's wrong. My budget should be $3,075-297. Why is that not like that? Have your people explain to me why it's not done, why my budget was cut, who cut my budget without informing me. You can't do that, Sheriff. Chairman,
I can have Mr. Administrator.
I appreciate it. I've been asking for months.
Would you like for me to do that, since you have the floor?
You can, sir.
Mr. Administrator, can you explain to him?
Your budget is identical to what it was in the prior year.
Yes, and it was wrong last year.
Your budget is identical to the budget that was approved by this board in 2023.
But you submitted it wrong. And let me take another step. When you submitted the budget, I had 32 people working in my office. They submitted a budget that only had 30 people. So they submitted it wrong. So, and he doesn't want to admit that. I don't know why we're paying him $40,000 a year, $40,000 a month either. Everything he's doing is doing wrong. You got a man in charge of the county, in charge of finance. His company is in charge of our finance department. He's the manager of the county. He's controlling HR. He's in control of too much. And if you don't see that because you think he's helping, he's not helping you. He's trying to keep his money. That's what he's doing. He has no interest in Douglas County except keeping his $480,000 coming in every year. And that's the bottom line. And I don't blame him. I'd probably do the same thing. But did he cut his budget? He cut your budget, didn't he? Yes, he cut his budget also. So if you're going to pay him $80,000, cut his budget by, give me his $100,000 since you want to take my money. So I'm asking for the $53,000 and I'm not taking it from that line item. I got 2 people who started. If you don't pay them, I'll be at the labor board with them. Bottom line. Because I hired those people and they deserve to get paid. And if you don't want to pay them because you think I got money in my budget that I'm not going to use, you should have called me to your office and we could have sat down and talked about this. But you want to talk about it now because you want to look good. That doesn't happen.
I didn't talk to you about it because you hired a lawyer.
No, that
You
didn't
hired
happen.
a lawyer.
So I didn't hire a lawyer.
Yes, you did.
No, I didn't. See, and again, you got your information wrong. And again, you want to say, you can sit there and laugh if you want, but that's not the truth. They didn't say you couldn't talk to me. Who told you you couldn't talk to me?
I said I
Who
couldn't.
said?
I'm answering you. I said I couldn't talk to you. If you've got an attorney that's trying to deal with us, I'm not one that wants to talk to an attorney. We have attorneys.
I didn't ask you to talk to my
We have a county
attorney.
attorney, and if your attorney wants to talk to our county attorney, that's great. And we'll do what our county attorney suggests that we do.
Well, he told you wrong. I never told you I couldn't talk to you, and did you call me?
I said I can't talk to you. I've got an attorney. I have that right.
Okay. Well, you have an attorney. Don't say that. My attorney said I couldn't talk to
Don't
you.
you have one?
I do have one.
Yeah.
But he never told me I couldn't talk to you. He never said I couldn't submit stuff to HR and get it turned down.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to do what's legally right.
So, county attorney, did my attorney say I couldn't talk to him?
Because of the discord between your office and other members of the staff with respect to these matters, I recommended to your lawyer, I think we agreed, we would, between the two of us, serve as an interface during the current period until we can get things better resolved. That's what I recommended. Thought that Mr. agreed with that. I certainly recommend better given the circumstance.
So he never told you that I couldn't talk to anybody.
I have responded to your question, Mr. Baker.
Huh?
Commissioner Baker, I just responded.
Okay.
He did not say that, and I didn't say that. I didn't say that. What I said and what I...
Answer anything?
No, sir, you can, I can't hear you, come on. Good morning, or maybe afternoon now.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good morning. My name's Ken Gerard with the law firm of Gerard and Davis. Coleman, good to see you as well. Address, how about this, just for Forsyth County, not near here. So, with respect to Mr. Coleman's comments, I do agree that with respect to Mr. Baker engaging directly with HR, I concurred that a couple of weeks cool-off was in order. I do not believe, however, and nor did we discuss the notion of engaging with the chairman of the Board of Commissioners. I believe that a constitutional officer engaging directly with the chairman of the board is in order. Now, to the extent that your attorney advises you not to do that, I will leave that in the good graces of you and your attorney. But I also believe, though, that if lawyers being involved shuts down that direct line of communication, then that is a problem.
I think so.
And so, but it doesn't mean he doesn't have an entitlement to representation. What it means is you all still need to be able to speak man to man about issues of concern to the Board of Commissioners. That would be my recommendation. I'll yield to Mr. Coleman on what he wants to say to you on that, but from my perspective, with respect to representing Mr. Baker, I am perfectly comfortable with him engaging you directly, without me there.
Okay. Thank you.
Hope that helps you, Chairman.
Oh, it helps me greatly, yeah.
Thank you. Anyway, that's my ask today. The ball's in your court. As always, my goal is to get along with you, all of you. My goal is not to have attorneys involved. And I wish you would have you've always called me. Like I say, I don't have a problem with you.
I don't.
I think the wedge.
I thought we were buddies.
I think the wedge has come between administration. I'm not going to hold my tongue. Administration is terrible, and I haven't had a problem with you. You and I have always sat down and talked. I regret the fact that you thought you had to wait to sit down and talk to me. And if somebody told any of you you can't talk to me, that's not true. I'm so happy to talk to any of you, and I do. In fact, I'm still going to tell you my budget's wrong. We are going to have a problem if you only give me that $2,800,000. I think your collections are going to suffer. I'm going to just say it up front.
Really?
You will not have a 95% collection rate. And I behoove you to sit down with me, because my goal is not to have the tax people of this county have any tax increases. I'm along with you on that, and my goal is that I give you 65% of your income that comes into the county. That's most of the income. I've given you a couple of scenarios where I can help recoup some of the money that you guys did the rollback on. When I asked the county administrator last time I was up here how much money that was needed to recoup, he seems to just said, we have a balanced budget. He knew that's about what I was talking about. What I was talking about is how much we rolled back, how much we was missing, which I knew was $5 million, but it could have been more. I talked to you about this, and I've said that I would be willing to help to get this $5 million, recoup some of it. I don't know if I can recoup all of it, but there's ways that we're still, and I said this too to you, we're still missing money. I need your help to get it. I can't do it by myself, but we've always been missing money. I say this every year if you go back and look at it, because there's still people out there that haven't paid taxes. We're digging them up. Barnhill came up here last time we were here and showed where we collected $600,000 that we hadn't collected before because we didn't know it out there. We dug under rocks and found out we haven't done it. There's ways to do it, but we're not going to get it done by fighting with each other. And I'm not here to fight with you. I'm here to work with you. I want to cut taxes because I got my tax bill just like everybody got their tax bill. I don't want to pay that thing, but I had to pay it. So if we're not working together and we're fighting against each other, nothing's going to get done. And that's not my goal. And I'm just saying it right now. But I'm like you. I'm not going to back down for what I need. When you were sheriff, you fought for what you need. I'm here to fight for what I need. And I'm not here to get more than I need, but I'm here to get what I know I need. You know, you can't run to my department. I don't want to run the sheriff department or anybody else. I love my sheriff department. They deserve what they got. I'm glad they got it. I love my fire department because when I call either one of them, I want them to show up in 2 minutes because all our lives depend on them getting there in a timely fashion. So I'll never dispute what you give the sheriff or the fire department because I love those guys. They do a great, wonderful job, and I will support them all the time. And I think most citizens do, and it's not about a liberal, Democrat, Republican, or anything else because most Democrats are not all liberal. They're conservative too. They got conservative issues that they have that they think, and spending is one of them too, whether you believe it or not. I don't want you to spend more than you have to, but I need what I need to do the collections that I need to do. And that's all I'm saying. My budget's wrong. I'm going to say it again. Work with me to get it right. It was wrong last year. You approved a budget where I only have 30 people last year, but I got 32 working in my office. It's wrong. And you should even be able to see that. I mean, HR thing says 36, and I don't have a problem with HR. I never had a problem with HR. Fred was there. I never had this situation. If I ask you a question and you take 30 days to ask me, I mean, I called the lady on October 31st, and I've yet to receive a call. There's something wrong there. Yeah. And when every time I call there, they tell me she's working from home. My people don't work from home. They're always in the office. You can't tell me you're working from home every time I call there or go by there. There's something wrong. And I don't have a problem. You do, county administrator can let her do whatever she wants. I don't work there. I'm not in charge of that department. I'm in charge of the tax commissioner office. But my people don't work from home. They're there every day. And you can't work from home and give me service and then say I'm bothering you. I'm not bothering you. I'm asking one question. Because I asked a question, I'm bothering you? All I'm asking is, where's my requisitions? That's all I'm asking. If you 30 days holding my requisition, where are they? And why are you still working from home if something's still sitting there for 30 days? So that's my speech and what I got. And
I just have one question, and I had it all along, and it's not pointed at anybody, and I'm new at this. So we have a $392,000 excess budget last year. We got a $400 and something thousand this year. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay. If we've got that kind of money and it's left over, why can't we pay for those 2 salaries out of that because it's excess money? Is that right? Am I wrong in thinking that?
No, you could be right. You could be totally right. But
That's all
if that money's already earmarked for somewhere, okay, so let's say I use it. Okay, I'll use it. Okay. So now I got to come back before you and say, okay, I used this money. Now I need this money. What are you going to say to me?
I'm gonna say you didn't spend it, so.
Yeah, no,
that's
I
why
didn't
we
spend
use
it. But what happens when I have to pay for something I saved it for?
I for one would amend your budget. Now, I don't know how everybody else feels, but if I took it, I would give it back if you spent it. I think that's the way a budget ought to work.
And that's what I asked, and I was told I wouldn't get it back
Okay. Well,
by finance.
all right, well,
So if they'd have told me I'd get it back, we wouldn't be here.
All right.
But I was told, and that's why I said we need to sit down and talk, but I was told I wouldn't get it back.
All right, I think your attorney had good advice. I think if you want to come see me and talk, or need to come see you and talk, I'm willing to do that, okay?
I'm gonna take some of your money, we'll go to lunch.
Don't go nowhere.
All right, next.
Chairman,
Yes, sir.
if you don't mind, before tomorrow,
Mhm.
I want to sit down and talk with you about
Okay.
this, because there are some questions I do have, but I want some clarification
Okay,
before we vote on it tomorrow.
I'll come today.
Okay. I yield, Chairman.
Vice Chair.
How do you know I want to speak? Commissioner Baker, you said that your budget shows 280 million, but it should be 3,075,000.
Yes,
So that's a difference of about $200,000
Yes.
that you are missing.
yes.
Okay. I want to do this now so we don't have you back up here. So if you'll bear with me. So Rosalind, Ms. Miller? So talk to me about what do we have in the contingency plan where you're pulling money from?
We placed 600,000 when we're going through the grants, so it's about 50,000.
Okay, so
Yeah.
our policy this year in terms of what we will set aside from the 127 million, so it's about 10% is what we have to have, right? So that's the 10% policy, or it may be 12% now.
Oh, for the fund balance.
Fund balance.
Oh, right.
Mhm.
Yes. And last I think it's up to 13%. I have to look at my documents that I don't have, but go ahead, David.
Yes.
15%.
It's 15% this year, so 15% over the 127 is what we are supposed to save and put into the fund balance.
Right, but minus out any obligations too. Remember,
What is
Yeah.
the fund balance at the moment?
I believe I don't have my document right in front of me, but I'm gonna see if I can pull it up.
Approximate
$35 million
total.
Okay. So with the encumbrances and what we will probably close out the year with, I think we can give the tax commissioner 200,000 of a $35 million, so that we don't have attorneys and that's going back and forth. At the end of the day, right? And I've said this, my colleagues up here have heard me say it. The money is spent in the community. Commissioner Baker isn't taking the money home. At the end of the day, it is spent on the people who he needs to provide the services that the taxpayers have elected him for. So I don't understand why we are fighting about $200,000. I don't understand
No.
why we're fighting about $53,000.
That's fine. If you're stating that you would, like if you look at the sheet I provided, if you're stating under the tax commissioner that we should add the 210, I believe that you requested, because you want your budget what you requested. To get the 3 million, it's at 2.8. So if you're recommending that amendment be done for the 2024 for the 210 that he's requesting, I would just need to know where I'm taking it from, and if we're just going to have fund balance to offset it. And if we do, I think we may have to change our policy because it's only recurring revenue, and fund balance it's a one-time. Am I correct? Yeah, so the policy would have to be amended, but we can do an amendment and add the 210 to his request.
And I get that, right? Because I was the one who implemented the policy, right? So I get that. But at the end of the day, Commissioner Baker's office has always collected above and beyond what they said they were going to collect anyway. It is no way we could be sitting up here providing these services in this courthouse if he did not do the work and he did not hire the people. Just ain't no way, right? So for me to sit up here and go back and forth, and I mean, we may not have to even go that far. We do have attorney's fees that we can use, 1.5 million. We can offset that. There are other areas, since y'all are offsetting CSB, and you know, deteriorating their funds. Well, where is that money going? So it's different ways, and I am not happy when I see us as elected officials, right, not helping each other and meeting the needs of the constituents who elected us. Period, point blank. It does not make sense to me. To see you even go back and forth with the chairman, that's not the spirit of how we do things. That is not the spirit. I've never had that, you know, happen since my 5 years of being here as a commissioner. And so there are some things that I just don't want to become the precedents, right? We always sit down and we can talk about things. And policy does, again, need to align with our budget. It just does. So I would like to see us figure out how we can offset some things so that we can make sure that the tax commissioner's budget is taken care of. Again, it's public facing, and we can't, none of us up here will go outside and collect money from anybody to pay for the services we have up here. We just not. So I think, you know, there's a better way that we can do this. And I yield with that, Chairman.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right.
Oh, no, I haven't.
All right. Thank you, guys. I appreciate you.
Thank you, sir.
Chairman.
Sorry about that.
We're good.
It was our first.
We're good.
Yeah, I'm good too.
Like I say, I'm gonna take a few dollars from you.
All right, buddy. All right, next.
Number 8, authorization to renew an agreement with Comprehensive Program Services, Inc. with the Douglas County Sheriff's Office for the period of January 1, 2024 through December 31st, 2024 to provide technical support, administrative management, preventive maintenance, and repair services for all security electronic systems installed by Black Creek Integrated Systems Corporation in the amount of $189,872.66 to be funded through the Sheriff's Department budget, and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents pending final legal review. Lieutenant Colonel Pounds.
Good afternoon. So this is, we deal with the Black Creek. We're going to need their services up until the construction has began or is completed for the new company that we have chosen.
Any comments, questions?
It is $403 cheaper this year, but
Vice Chair.
Vice Chair has a question.
Yes, I do. Lieutenant Colonel Pounds, explain to us again what we're doing with Black Creek and how the new system will be integrated. And
Okay,
we're phasing out. I think we're phasing out Black Creek.
Yes.
Okay.
So Black Creek they do the cameras and the doors at our facility.
Mm-hmm.
We've had trouble with them in the past, so now we've got a new company to do that. But at this current time, they're still in the developmental phase, so they're trying to find different people for infrastructure, video management software, and the camera locations. The plans also include electrical, mechanical, and the floor plans. So basically, they're coming in and they're just going to do the cameras and everything else, and even I think they said something about the fire suppression system. Yes. So they're going to do a brand new project from start to finish. So Black Creek is the system that we use since the opening of the facility.
Mm-hmm.
Since we had so many problems with it, that's when we were moving on from.
Okay, maybe I'm confused. So we are moving on from Black Creek,
Yes,
but the contract that you have before us today is for another year until
yes, ma'am. Until we get everything else in play. Yes, ma'am.
until you get everything else in
Yes,
place.
because if they take their services, then of course we can't do anything in the building.
Got you. So they won't be removing anything. They'll just be maintaining it until you get the new system up and running.
Yes, ma'am.
And then Black Creek will be cut off, and then the new service provider will be in place.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. This is an expensive contract for somebody we're not going to be utilizing in a year. But you said it's $403 savings. So
Yes.
I wish y'all could have saved us a
cheaper,
little
but-
bit more. It's
But,
still
I
a
mean-
hefty contract for somebody we're not utilizing. So it just kind of seems to me that even though they know we're not no longer be utilizing them, it's almost as if they're saying, oh, we still gonna charge you for. That's just yeah. I don't know who Black Creek is or again.
Been an albatross.
They've been an albatross. I believe you, Sheriff. Yeah, even the hourly rates that they have for engineers and technical support. I mean, it's a lot for a system that we are not pleased with and that doesn't work how we need it to. So
That's why we're.
That's why we're getting away from it. I get it. It this is just wow, unbelievable. But one solace is you won't be bringing this contract back next year, right?
Hopefully not.
Hopefully not. I yield.
Anyone else? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next.
Number 9, authorization for the chairman to execute an employment contract with Sierra Casera as a Juvenile Justice Incentive Grant Coordinator for Juvenile Administration through June 30th, 2024, to be fully funded through the Justice Incentive Grant pending final legal review. Jamie Deppermont.
Thank you, Jamie.
Good morning.
How are you?
Doing? So this is for an employment contract for Ms. Sarah, who would be operating as a coordinator for our Juvenile Justice Incentive Grant Program. This is a fully grant-funded position at this time, and just for her yearly contract.
Questions, comments? We're good. Thank you.
Number 10, authorization for the chairman to execute a renewal employment contract with Leanne Harbison as Chance Court Youth Peer Specialist, fully funded through the BJA, Justice and Mental Health Collaboration Program grant, pending final legal review. Jamie?
This is a renewal for our youth peer specialist who works with our juvenile chance court program, which is in a juvenile accountability court. And this is a renewal of her yearly contract.
Questions, comments? Next.
Okay, number 11, authorization for the chairman to execute a renewal employment contract with Monica Jimenez Fierro as a juvenile programs mental health case manager through September 30th, 2024, fully funded through the BJA Justice and Mental Health Collaboration Program grant, pending final legal review. Jamie?
Again, so this is another renewal for our employment contract for Ms. Fierro. She is our case manager, one of our case managers in our chance court.
Questions? Next.
Number 12, authorization for the chairman to execute a renewal employment contract with Brandon Casada as Juvenile Programs Accountability Court Coordinator through September 30th, 2024, fully funded through the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council grant, pending final legal review. Jamie?
Again, renewal for an employment contract. Mr. Casada serves as our coordinator for both of our accountability courts, family treatment court.
Questions, comments? Next.
Number 13, authorization for the chairman to execute an agreement for services contract with Chiquita Beatty as facilitator for youth programming in the amount of $60 per hour which is approximately $15,000 to $20,000 per year, through June 30th, 2024, fully funded through the Juvenile Justice Incentive Grant pending final legal review.
And finally, this is a services agreement for Ms. Beatty to provide our services for our Juvenile Justice Incentive Grant Program. She's a independent contractor, and she'll be providing evidence-based programming for our participants.
Questions? Vice Chair.
Okay. Jamie, you had a lot on the agenda.
I did.
Just one quick question. We rely on grants a lot, especially through the BJA. Do you know if they're looking at cutting any of their funding, and how would that impact your department and then in turn impact the Board of Commissioners and funding?
As far as I know, Commissioner Carthen, I have not seen anything that would lead me to believe that BJA is cutting funding. They continue to release grant solicitations. We'll see, I guess, at the beginning of the year when they release this coming fiscal year's grant solicitations. But as far as I know, I know Ms. Hopston and myself are pretty engaged in the community, and I haven't seen anything from BJA that would lead me to believe that they're looking at cutting funding, but I can't say that for certain.
Got you. And losing any one of these positions would do what to your program?
It would make things challenging for certain programs. I do feel like we have a pretty solid funding source through the Juvenile Justice Incentive Grant Program. We've received that funding for over 10 years at this point. This is our 11th year of funding through them. The other programs obviously have definitive end dates to them, but there's always the possibility where funds aren't completely used, where you can ask for no cost extensions on unused grant funds.
Got you. I've seen you guys in action. I've seen you guys at the Youth Innovation Center, which again was provided by CSB, which we are now cutting. I think, I love to, let everybody know how this ecosystem works to fund the projects that we have within the community. So you guys do a great work.
Thank you.
Absolutely great. With that, Chairman, I yield.
Thank you. Is that Chiquita Bailey that works for the Sheriff's Office, or did?
She's a former sheriff's deputy, Commissioner Miller, and she's also a former school resource officer. So she brings a great wealth of experience and a very strong desire to work with our youth.
Great person. All right, next.
Thank you. Number 14, authorization for the chairman to execute an ultimate vendor purchaser exemption certificate for Douglas County to receive government pricing from Bridgestone America's Tire Operations, LLC, pending final legal review. Heath Coward.
Hey, good morning, Chairman, Vice Chair, Commissioners. So this is just for your signatures. This is just so we can receive the government discount. That's it. There's no ask. There's no requirement or anything to it. It allows us to get with different tire manufacturers, because we at Fleet shop for best price customers. This is one way of doing it. I know Firestone, for an example, would be MSRP is about $230 a tire, and with government discount, it's like $89. So
yeah, we're good with that.
Yeah.
Been any questions?
Any questions, comments? Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
Number 15, authorization to partner with Cobb and Douglas Public Health to facilitate dissemination of the strategic national stockpile as a closed point of distribution site in the event of a public health emergency with no impact to the budget, and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents pending final legal review. Chief Allen.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Vice Chair, Commissioners. Basically, this is to allow for us to partner with Cobb and Douglas Public Health so we can maintain the distribution for the point of distribution for the national stockpile of critical assets.
Questions, comments? All right.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Number 16, approval of a professional services contract with Contour in the amount of $585 for the construction material testing services of the Spine Road project previously approved in the Douglas Ford Reinvestment Plan Phase 1, reimbursable by TAD, as recommended by the Transportation Committee, and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents pending final legal review. Solomon Rana.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Board of Commissioners. Spine Road is a new roadway construction off of 92. This is roughly half a mile tangent of new roadway to facilitate the new development coming in that vicinity. The board approved the construction contract on October 31st. This contract helps us deliver material testing services when that construction starts. As of right now, we're awaiting last right-of-way dedications to the county before construction can officially start. But this helps us align our resources so when that time comes, we're prepared to move on with construction. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Vice Chair?
I wasn't in your transportation committee, so I couldn't ask this question, but I'll ask it now since you're on the floor. How long do you think we are in terms of collecting or getting the right-of-way acquisition to start this project?
Yes, we have been in communication with the developer and the development authority for the past 4 to 6 months. They've been given all the information they need to transfer over the right-of-way that we need for our specific road project. There are other variables involved, but this has to come from development authority and the developer to us. So we are not directly acquiring it. End of the day, it's going to be donation. Where we stand today is, from the last thing we heard, is they're finalizing some deed documents, and we should have it within 1 to 2 weeks. And we are continuing to reassuring or reinforcing the need of timely action on right-of-way deed, because at some point it could jeopardize the bidding process at hand.
Okay, so within 1 to 2 weeks. I would ask Chairman that you facilitate pushing that a little harder so that we can get this done ASAP. 4 to 6 months is a long time, and if it's let me just say this: when the Economic Development Authority came before us wanting us to push this through, they had no problem jumping the agenda, right, County Administrator, and getting on our radar. Why is it taking them so long to do what they need to do? Everybody wants to push the Board of Commissioners to do what they want us to do, but then when it's time for us to execute stuff, they want to drag their feet. I just don't think that that's right. So, Chairman, I would ask that you kind of get involved and push that, because we don't want funding to be an issue, especially when we know that some of this is state related to get Highway 92 under where we need it to be.
Okay.
With that, I yield.
I talked to Chris Humphreys probably bi-weekly about, and mostly it's about this project. This is a TAD deal. This is something that we recover through TAD.
Yes, sir.
What is, just to get your opinion, what's holding this process up? Is the Development Authority doing anything that would impair us to go forward with this expeditiously?
Yes, sir. As of right now, it's right-of-way. We definitely need all the footprint to be dedicated to our name before we can get our foot on the ground, actually start construction. So right-of-way dedication to county is holding the project up as of right now, and even the contract at hand. This is something that's usually done after you've acquired the right-of-way as you start construction, but we are speeding the process as much as we can, and that is actually what's holding the project, the right-of-way.
Okay. Just get with me, and anything that you need from them, I'll try to help you get, okay?
Sir, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Next.
Chairman, if it's okay with you, I'm going to go ahead and skip to number 20 so Director Rana can complete his items on the agenda.
Okay.
Number 20 is approval of the resurfacing list of roads for submittal to GDOT for the fiscal year 2024 LMIG grant program application in the amount of $1,486,878.55 with a 30% required local match to be funded through the 2022 SPLOST funds, and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents pending final legal review.
Thank you. This is our yearly effort to resurface various county roads. As we approach end of the year, this is the time to apply for our annual state grant, which is called LMIG. This gives us roughly $1.5 million in state funding to help with our annual resurfacing efforts. Part of that is we finalized a list of over 30 roads, which gives us roughly 12 miles of roadway that will be resurfaced next year. This list was formulated in coordination with each district office, the board, and DOT departments within themselves. Where we stand today is we have to apply for this grant. We need board's permission on the list, concurrence on the list, and concurrence on the application so we can proceed and secure the funding. The actual contract for resurfacing will come before you guys in spring of next year when we go through the procurement process and have a contractor at hand. Thank you.
Questions? Comments? Next.
Number 21, approval of the second amendment of the intergovernmental agreement with the City of Douglasville on joint city and county funding for the Highway 5 and Douglas Boulevard Turn Lane project as recommended by the Transportation Committee, and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents pending final legal review.
This is a city-county joint project. The goal is to add a turn lane at Highway 5 at Douglas Boulevard intersection. This project initially started in 2019. The rough scope is, the allocation of the project is $1.2 million in SPLOST 2016 funds. Roughly $600,000 come as a city match to that total amount. The project has been designed and has been ready to go. We have had some hurdles in right-of-way process again. We're currently working through a legal process to acquire the needed right-of-way, and we're hopeful that the time that's requested under this amendment, which would take us to March of 2025, will allow us sufficient time to deliver the project. If there are any questions, I'd love to answer those, but that's what we're asking, an extension to the IGA agreement.
Questions, comments? That's something that we're all looking forward to, especially here at Christmas time when the malls are full and everybody needs to turn right and can't. So, yes, we need to get it done as quick as we can.
We're on it, sir.
Thank you. Next.
Number 22, authorization to award on-demand professional consulting services contracts to various consulting firms pursuant to RFQ 23-019 as recommended by the Transportation Committee, and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents pending final legal review.
So each year we retain a number of on-call consultants to help us in our design needs. There are roughly 12 service areas that were recently advertised under RFQ 23-19. We received responses from 14 qualified firms. In the evaluation process, we are requesting this board to retain 13 of them for different service areas. They were ranked per each service area and the qualifications submitted. So as the demand rises along for the next year and the year afterwards, we'll evaluate each firm and come back to the board with specific contracts, scope specific and dollar amount specific contracts for your approval. So as of right now, DOT recommends retaining these 13 consultants as on-call consultants. Thank you.
Question?
Number 23, authorization to accept .416 acres of right-of-way dedication on Factory Shoals Road from PR Factory Shoals LLC with no impact to the budget, and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents pending final legal review.
This is a DRC project. Per the roadway classification, the development lacked the sufficient right-of-way. So in order to be compliant, they're donating this part of right-of-way to be compliant with the right roadway classification. And the area is roughly 0.19 acres. And do you answer any questions?
Questions, comments? Vice Chair.
One question. Director Ronald, this is regarding item number 22. Did the on-demand professional consulting services contract, did that come before the Transportation Committee when retired Commissioner Robinson was sitting on it?
Yes, this was discussed in the last committee meeting, which was mid of last month.
Okay. Thank you. I yield.
All right. Next.
Number 24, authorization to execute a quitclaim deed of .190 acres on Highway 78, Veterans Memorial Highway, in favor of Georgia Department of Transportation, and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents pending final legal review.
Apologies, I missed the number last time. On the last item is 0.4 acres on the last item, 0.19 on this one. This specific development is on Highway 78, and the project now being completed, we are returning the right-of-way or handing it over to GDOT for maintenance purposes because this is a state route. And this would just be something that we accepted summer of this year and now handing it over to GDOT for maintenance. Thank you.
Comment? Next.
Next is number 25, approval of change order number 4 in the amount of $288,075.09 on the contract with CMES Inc. for construction of the Lee Road Phase 2 widening project to be funded from the 2016 SPLOST funds as recommended by the Transportation Committee, and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents pending final legal review.
So Lee Road is one of the biggest projects that's active on our books. It's roughly 2.75 miles of roadway widening from I-20 to Fairburn. During the course of construction, there were a few unexpected discoveries that required this change order. The three biggest things that this covers is on-site quantity adjustment, for example, for erosion control measures. Then there were there are 6 total water vaults on the project, and original plans called for relocation of those. 3 of those, when excavated, were in a poor condition and have to be reconstructed and then relocated. So that adds the biggest expense in this change order. And all of those items combined require this change order in the amount that's mentioned, plus 35 days that are strictly associated to the water walls and the extra work that's going to take. Thank you.
Thank you. Comment? Vice Chair?
Okay, so if we're amending the whole contract with them to include this 288,000?
Yes.
And when they did the bid for the construction of it, they could not have anticipated?
So on the plans, it was identified that we have the water walls on those specific locations. When we excavated, they were in a worse condition that we had anticipated, and plus the relocation responsibility wasn't part of their scope initially. It was marked as to be done by others. But just the condition that it was encountered in and the location of it's in, it now falls under contractor's responsibility. So that is an added scope to the original contract, and this wasn't what was negotiated in the contract.
So beforehand, I see that they are taking it on, so they want to be compensated for it. But who would have been responsible for it before they decided that they would?
So ideally, utilities such as a water wall would be identified by the designer. We would evaluate who best is responsible for relocating those. Ideally, this could have been WSA who would have been responsible, but just the location of it and how it was marked, it was identified to be purely relocated, whereas now it needs to be reconstructed. Secondly, the location of this, it was located in private right-of-way, so WSA is not mandated to remove that at their cost, so it falls on DOT and the contractor to work it out.
Understood. With that, I yield.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you.
Number 26, authorization to install a 3-way stop control at Andy Mountain Road and Alley Lane to be funded by DOT's budget as recommended by the Transportation Committee, and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents pending final legal review.
Thank you. We received a complaint from the board to evaluate the safety conditions of the subject intersection. Upon investigation, we found that there were inadequate side distance for left turn movement from Alley Lane onto Andy Mountain Road. That means a multi-lane stop sign is warranted to control the flow of traffic from all sides, and riders can safely turn on and off from Andy Mountain. Thank you.
Who will be installing the stop sign?
We'll do it.
So it's in-house?
Yes.
We don't have to?
No.
Okay.
It's just approving the control measure of the intersection.
I yield, Chairman.
Okay, next.
We will go back up to number 17, approval to designate Suzanne Norris and Rosalind Miller as an authorized signer to deposit and/or withdraw funds from the local government investment pool. Rosalind Miller.
Yes, good morning. This is just to add Suzanne Norris to our signature cards for banking.
Okay.
Okay.
Good.
All right.
All right, next. Oh, we're good.
Next is number 18, authorization to amend the 2022 general fund operating budget in the amount of $977,327 in relation to the funds previously allocated through ARPA funds provided to the Community Service Board. Rosalind Miller.
Yes. First, I would like to provide a little detail. So in 2022, we received ARPA funds and grant funds, federal grants, and it doesn't matter of the type of grant, it's just a federal grant. So I'm gonna say we received a federal grant and we allocated funds to CSB, which was in the amount of $1,050,000. Also, in that same year, the board allocated $1.2 million in general fund to CSB. So you have two funding sources. You have a general fund, and then you have the federal grant funding, a total of $2.2 million. However, as you know, that we're going through our 2022 audit, and there are challenges, and this is one of them. With federal funds, you have to have receipts, details. Like one of the items for the $1 million that CSB received in federal funds was rent assistance. So with federal funds, you have to identify who received the funding, what unit they lived at, the lease agreement, and the total amount, and then the canceled check, proof that the money went, to the citizen that leases out the rental. So we're having a difficult time getting those receipts, detailed receipts from CSB. So what we're requesting in this budget amendment, we're actually changing, we would like to change the funding source because general fund is not as strict as federal funds. For the $1.2 million that CSB receives from the county, that's general fund, we don't ask for details. We do ask for a receipt, and they have to put the services that were rendered. So it's a receipt, and we cut the check. So we would like to transfer that $1 million to general fund. Take it out of the federal grant, state that it wasn't grant funding, but actually general funds. So we're asking to bump up CSB's allocation for general fund in 2022 to $2.2 million versus the 1.2. And so that's what this budget amendment is before you. However, you see that the amount, it says 976. And we were subtracting each time we receive receipts, actual receipts that we can provide the auditors. Over the weekend, I went back through the documentation. We have a consultant looking at receipts, and there is a total of 159,000 receipts out of the $1 million. So I would like to change the number to 977,327 to 890,781. So that's how much we would like to transfer to general fund as a general fund expense. So we would add the 1.2 with that 890. And I know that the deduction looks, I guess perception is reality. I know but that's not, we feel that this will help, CSB. I'm not sure if it's, what's causing the hardship of providing the receipts, but if we transfer it over to general, they can continue to provide us with receipts. That would be great, because then we can make a federal grant. But if not, it's going to be out of your general fund. And so that's the reasoning for reducing their 2024 allocation, because in 2022, they received $2.2 million if this budget amendment is approved by the board.
Sure. So how is it then that when you presented beforehand and you talked about the CSV budget, how is that related to item number 18?
So therefore, if it's the 2.8, if the board, because the board's intent was not to take it out of general fund, and I'm talking about the $1 million federal.
Mm-hmm.
So by reducing it, it's going to offset the amount that we're allocating for in 2022 at 2.2 million. It's reducing that $1 million. So it'll offset, your fund balance. But if we bump it up back to the 1.2 in 2024, then your fund balance is going to be out $1 million. We're just trying to offset the cost so it's not such a big impact to your general fund budget.
So the findings that you're talking about in terms of receipts, where the receipts that they provided, you said were only $159,000.
That's correct.
When I sit on the CSB board, and so we were given that it was more than $159,000 worth of receipts, and that some of what you all are looking at, because CSB is a quasi-state board, then you have people who are, let's say, under court order protection. So the CSB can't release their name and all of that information on there, but what they can do is provide you that they paid it, and so it would be under CSB name. It wouldn't be under Rosalind Miller's name. It would be under CSB. And so I was told personally that those receipts that they had given you all were not counted because they were in CSB name. But technically, and because of state laws, they can't give you that person's name.
Right.
So there's this big discrepancy of what receipts go and what receipts don't. And I know you guys were given like 3 or 4 boxes of receipts to go through. And I think Chairman Miller and I and Mr. Corbin were in a meeting when they said, yeah, we came and gave y'all all these receipts. And so there's a discrepancy of what is accounted for and what you guys are deeming as, plausible receipts. And I think that needs to be resolved.
Yeah, and we're going based off of, and that's why I said, if we just say federal grants, we handle, millions of dollars of federal grants, and we know the restrictions and the policy of federal grants. So we're just applying the policy for federal grants on the, receipts that are needed. And CSB did inform us that they can't give us that information. And we said no, and we came up with like a chart. They would, number a client or so, and that was fine. But you're right, they gave us over boxes and boxes of documents that were not labeled. So that is taking a while. That's why I'm saying it's probably more receipts in there, but it wasn't organized. We just, about a month ago, we went to the cloud with it, like OneDrive, and we asked them, or SharePoint, I believe, to start labeling the receipts to make it a lot easier for us to review so we could catch it, like, hey, you're still missing receipts. So it's a process. I'm not saying that there's no receipts out there. I'm just saying that we don't have them, and it's taking time for us to go through all the documents. So that's why my recommendation for now is because we're gonna be they're auditing our 2022. So to move on, so we can close out our 2022, is actually take it out of the federal grant bucket. Because if it stays in the federal grant bucket, they're going to ask, and we only have $159,000 worth of receipts. I'm not saying that there's not CSB does not have the receipts. I'm just saying that we don't know what we have until we, if it was organized, this wouldn't be an issue, but it wasn't organized. It was just thrown in a box, just documents just thrown in a box. I believe it was like 3 or 4 boxes. And we had to scan it because that was their documents. So we had to scan in all of those documents to create some type of filing system so we could easily pull it. So it's just taking a process. It's just taking time.
And I get that. And you are, how many people in your finance department?
I know. But like I said, we have, earlier I said there are a grant team. Well, now there are a finance and budgeting team.
And how many people is that?
It's, it's 12.
It's 12.
Yeah.
I would surmise that CSB probably has 1 to 2 people. So if you got 12, you got 4 or 5, 6 times
The
the amount that
commissioner.
CSB has to go through documents. And again, you know, I've said it 3 or 4 times up here. The money is spent within the community on those citizens. And so if we cut their budget moving into 2024 on the basis that they may not have the receipts, to me, that's not a good enough excuse. I understand how you're trying to account for it. I don't agree with how you all are doing it, because at the end of the day, what you're doing is cutting services to the people who need it the most. And that, to me, is the biggest, you know, the biggest thing that we need to be concerned about.
Right, and we're not doing, I'm just doing the numbers.
I
We're
get
not-
you.
Yeah.
I get you.
Right.
But you're the one standing in front of me.
This is
and
just
you're
a
the-
proposed
hey,
budget,
hey,
right.
I
I'm
get it. I
looking
get
for
it.
recommendation.
The chair and the county administrator puts the budget before the board of commissioners, and we either say yay or nay. We shape it as we see fit. Again, I'm going to shape it as I see fit. I'm going to make the comments, you know, that I know the citizens are wondering as well, like what happens to CSB? Will they go away if they don't have an operating budget, right? They're, again, state quasi, but the most of their funding comes from us because it is our local community services board, hence the name CSB. So I can't, for the sake of just trying to be nice, sit up here and not say anything. That's just not what I'm going to do. So again, we are going to punish the citizens for internal audits regarding services that have already been expended in 2020, 2021, and in 2022. And then we're going to say, well, 2024, you're just not going to have those services because we're trying to go through paperwork and scan it. The citizens don't want to hear that. They want to know that when they open the door to CSB, that there's a provider there, that there's peer support there, that there's a veteran services administrator there, that there's a Never Alone club house there, right? All of the services that are at that one resource center and at CSB will be cut. And the Youth Innovation Center, I didn't even bring them into the picture, but the Youth Innovation Center. All of the monies that we're talking about supports those services, right? How many other services do we have in the county? And this is not just for you, but this is for the chair and the county administrator as they present the budget. How many other services are forward facing? Parks and Rec, maybe. CSB, definitely, right? Sheriff's Office, I pray to God I never come in contact with the Sheriff's Office, and I don't want to see the inside of that jail. I haven't even taken a tour of it because I don't want to see the inside of it, right? So though, I mean, we're putting a lot of money over there, right? And we want a safe community, but again, CSB is part of the safety of the community, and we can't negate that because y'all are trying to get together paperwork.
Well, see, I see it. I thought that this was the best approach
I
because
get you.
they received 2.2. We keep saying we cut the budget, but really we did not. We're giving them, because we're taking that restriction off, and they don't have to provide us receipt. If the board approves this, budget amendment, they don't have to receive any receipt.
They don't have to receive. If we don't have to receive any receipts, then why are we cutting their budget?
No, because because it all goes in hand. The cut and item 18 goes in hand. That's why I stated it earlier. I said, but if the board does not approve 18, the budget amendment for 18, then yes, the board can make that the 1.2, but just know that there's a possibility that leaving it into federal funds, we will get a finding and may lose other federal grants. That's all I'm saying. This approach was just the best, what we felt that is suitable and that will get us through financial. It's, I guess on paper, on financial, it'll get us through. And CSB received $2.2 million to help the citizens. That's how we say it. That was not restricted at all. That's how we see it. That was not restricted at all. We're saying take off the restriction. That's what we're asking. Take off the restriction and give
of the money that's already been given, that's already been allocated, that's already been spent, right? That you're saying it was under ARPA or federal funding, right? That you don't have the receipts for yet. You may have the receipts for because they're in the boxes, but you don't have the staff, and then they don't have staff to, separate what's what. Totally get it. But again, this board should not be dinging the citizens for paper errors or paper, receipts that you may or may not get and findings that you may or may not get because we haven't finished our audits, right? So this is a lot of, stuff that hasn't been presented to the board. I haven't seen anything with a finding on CSB. And I've heard about findings with other departments, but I haven't seen those either. So again, we're not, understanding that what you see, is probably more than what we see, right? Because everything isn't listed. We'll go back to Commissioner Baker's point, right? If you detail stuff out, then everybody can see it, right? It's not hidden. It needs to be transparent. And I know beforehand when I sat on the board, we put it out there on the website so that everybody can see it line by line, detail by detail, as opposed to just the departments. But again, I'm just not in favor of dinging them going forward for something that we haven't yet to see the actual audits for. That's all. With that, Chairman, I yield.
Thank you. Mark, you have anything?
No.
I think CSB is a great organization. I think that the things that they do in the community is astounding. I can only go back and try to understand what our accounting people are doing. You have a business. If you gave somebody $100,000 and told them to bring in the receipts for that $100,000 and they failed to do it, would you give them another $100,000?
They didn't do it.
Well, would you, if you gave them $100,000, would you require them to give you receipts that you could understand, or would you, being in 3 or 4 boxes, that would be okay?
I would, but as a community and as a person that's in the community, if I gave CSB $100,000, I would want to sit down and figure out with them how we need to come to an understanding of how you present receipts. If this has never been done before, and this is the first time y'all are asking them to do that, and then they're coming to you with, hey, we understand your urgency, we're bringing you what we have. Again, they're limited staff. Again, she just told you her staff is 12, their staff is 1 or 2. It's apples to oranges in this scenario. And again, I'm gonna go back to, since I have the floor, okay, that's okay. So again, it goes back to what Commissioner Baker was saying. If you don't sit down and have these conversations and come to understandings, the only people that get hurt are the citizens. That's it. It's the citizens. So we have to figure out, how do we sit down with our community partners? How do we sit down with our elected officials? How do we sit down with our different department areas and directors and figure out, how do we make this work? Because it's for the citizens at the end of the day, period.
Well, I agree with you to a great extent. I think as business people, which is what a government should be, I think it ought to require people to answer for the money that they've been given, and it ought to be their responsibility to answer. It ought not be our responsibility to go through 3 or 4 or 5 boxes of receipts. I think it ought to be clear and understandable to the people that you're. I'm not against CSB. I think they do great. I just think we ought, as business people, we ought to require people to give us the answers of how they spent the money. If not, that leaves a whole ball of wax open that, people can assume whatever they want to assume. And I don't want to do that. I just want us to, I want us to be above board, and I want both sides to feel comfortable in them getting the money and us feeling good about giving them the money. But if we don't know where it's spent, how can we know that? Thank you. I appreciate it. Anybody else you want to respond to that?
I do.
Yes, ma'am.
So again, I started it with that CS board is a quasi-state government, meaning that they have to abide by state regulations in order to get their money, which means that they are audited at the state level, which means a third party comes in and audits them, right? So then their audit should align with the money that we've given them. Have you gotten the 2022 audit from CSB?
Yes. So, but the federal government that federal grant that you received, it's in the Board of Commissioners' name, so it's on your single audit.
I get that, but
Their
my
guidelines are.
my question to you was, did you get CSB 2022's
Yes,
audit?
we have it. We had to get it for the 1.2 million. So
Okay.
yes, we do have it.
Okay. And the receipts for the 2022, do they align with what we gave them?
I'm not sure what the state is requiring them to, since it's a pass-through and it's not really a grant, when it gets to them, it's a pass-through. So I'm not sure what their auditors require them to have. I just know what Douglas County auditors require finance to have. And also in the agreement, it states, I state boxes because that's what it was in, but also they've signed an agreement as long as the board approved the same agreement stating how and what order that these documents should be in. And they're not in that order per the agreement that they signed, that CSB signed.
Which agreement? Was it 2021, 2022,
It's their sub-recipient agreement.
And the subrecipient agreement that we didn't get from them until 2022?
Right, that's when we dispersed the funds.
Okay, but again, that money was going back to 2020 and 2021. I think some of this, right, is not as transparent as I would like it to be because they didn't have an agreement with the county. Those funds were dispersed beforehand because they were already providing services on behalf of the county for 2021, that ARPA money.
No, not for the sub-recipient agreement. They hadn't received, I believe it was $266,000 and $500,000 came under the sub-recipient agreement. And then we had to include.
So let's just stay right there. For the $260,000, you said they've only provided $159,000.
For the total million.
For the total million. But did that was that 260 incorporated into the million?
Yes, it was.
Okay, so do you see the dichotomy? If the 260 was incorporated into the $1 million, but you're saying that we didn't give them the money until 2022, and we didn't have a sub-recipient agreement until 2022, but they were already expending money on behalf of the county in 2020 and 2021.
Well, general fund. That was general fund. For the federal funds, they started on spending December the 31st of 2021 was their first allocation, and that was of 286. And then
did we have a contract with them?
Well, no, and that was a finding because they didn't have a contract. But we rectified that by when the sub-recipient agreement was approved by the board, we added that amount. So meaning those three allocations, which totaled $1 million, that means they had to follow that sub-recipient agreement. The 1.2 that the board approves is not part of that sub-recipient at all.
Totally agree with that. Totally understand that. I think where the discrepancy is for us and the Community Services Board is the sub-recipient agreement, how that was organized, how that came about, and that they were actually expending money on behalf of the county before that sub-recipient agreement went into place.
Well, I hope not. Well, yeah, now that I don't know.
And that was on the county. That was a finding on the county because we didn't put into place the proper sub-recipient agreement or the proper agreements with them. So what we're doing is we're dinging them for stuff that we didn't put into place. So nobody's talking about that, right? And that was the board before Chairman Miller got here. So that's not on Chairman Miller. That's not on Commissioner Alcaraz, right? It was the prior board, what we should have done, right? What the chairman should have made sure was in place before those funds were being dispensed to them, right? There's a lot more to this, right? I understand what y'all are trying to do from an accounting point. At the end of the day, I don't agree with it, but I yield.
Next. Mark, do you have anything?
Yes, sir. I reiterate what everybody else has said. I absolutely love what the Community Services Board is doing for our county and for the citizens and for those who need help. I think it is very crucial and it's very important for them to be here. but also sitting back as a business owner, just going to be 100% honest. If I allocate money towards someone and I have an agreement that I asked for from money that we gave to certain charities, that I wanted a report for what they spent that money on. We're talking about $1 million. And for that money, however you set up an organization, I fully believe if you know those stipulations are on you, you have to organize your organization to where you can provide those documents for what you spent. It is a huge concern of mine. I'm not going to say huge, but it is a concern of mine that as of today, we gave $1 million. I ain't going to get down to the penny. But then we've only figured out that we've only got $250-something thousand worth of receipts that we've found so far. Not saying check. I know you guys are trying your best. But that's the whole thing. I want to help the Community Services Board to stay in there for our citizens. But yes, everybody who we provide money to should be able to come back to us and give us a report when asked, here's where I spent the money. If I give in my business, if I allocate funds to something and to someone for some other department, and I say I need a report of where you allocate or where you spend this money, I expect to get a full report of where that money came, where it was spent, who it went to. I understand that there's privacy things that we cannot state whose names. Completely understand that. But we got to know where our money goes. And I think anybody sitting out there surely can understand that. It's a concern. But on the other hand, they are a valuable asset to our county. And it's something that I think whether we sit down with them and say, here's what we have to have going forward. If you want funding from us, here's what this is what we're going to demand. You've got to have this. And to not have an agreement beforehand, I'm not going to lie, I heard that and I was, whoa. But already dispersing them money. But that's just it's just common. Anybody who's paid taxes should want that from us. And I want to help them 100%. I want to help fund them. But yes, I agree that we should be able to get a report from them, and it should not be a boxes of receipts. That's just me. So we need to whether it's we need to help them organize to where they can provide us with those reports, or how they ever need to restructure the organization to make sure that that's in there. But if you're getting all this funding from a lot of other state and also local, I think we should be able to get that report. It's just an easy ask, I think. But I yield, Chairman.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I was just want to say, kind of to reiterate what Commissioner Alvarez said, just hopefully, going forward, that we have a process or a system put in place, or maybe even just the training to sit down with the finance department to where we don't run into this in the future. Because the accounting for all funds is definitely a priority when you're giving a lot of money, because then it leads to our auditors, whether it's at the state level or this county level, to question the integrity and wonder, if it's misappropriation of funds. What's the reasoning why you cannot provide the things that you asked for? And like everyone said, just running a business. If I buy something, I know I got to keep my books in order if I know I'm going to be audited. So that's how I yield.
Anyone else?
Number 19, authorization to approve a human resources software service agreement with Criterion, Inc. in the amount of $14,696.05 to be funded through Human Resources Department's budget and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents pending final legal review. Danielle Nichols.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, Commissioners of the Board. Our current online application tracking and onboarding software, which is Civic HR, and it is a part of the Civic Plus suite, is sunsetting and transitioning to Criterion Human Capital Management System. As a form of background, Civic HR is the software platform that Human Resources utilizes to manage job openings and the application process. This software offers automation and communication between the candidates, the hiring managers, and Human Resources. And in tracking, it allows us to track open positions and job candidates. So it is a valuable tool. The system identified as a replacement by Civic Plus is Criterion, and it is not only comparable to what we have today, but it is a more robust platform and will offer support continuity of service. The contract is for 3 years with an annual fee of $14,696, which is our existing rate with Civic Plus. And there is a one-time implementation fee of $1,950. The agreement is currently with the legal department for review, and thank you for your consideration, and I am open to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Vice Chair?
So it's for 3 years?
Yes.
Out the gate. This is not a 1 year.
So there is a 1 year option. Criterion is willing to honor our current rate with Civic Plus. However, if we go with a 1 year contract, there is a markup of 20%.
Got you. You should live with that. So during the 3 years, we are saving 20% as opposed to doing it as a 1 year contract.
Correct.
Okay. And what's the out clause if one of us is not satisfied? So if Douglas County is not satisfied with the services that Criterion is providing, what's our out?
Well, we have to provide notification that we want to exit the agreement, but we are obligated for 3 years.
We are obligated
Yes.
for 3 years. So what you're saying, Ms. Daniels, you're gonna make this work for 3 years?
I will make it work for 3 years. And also, that would afford us an opportunity to evaluate other options as well. When we learned about this transition, our actual contract expires May of next year. However, there is about a 60 to 90-day window that we have to go through the transition and maintain our current data. So we just simply did not have enough time to do the research to find out if there's another option, which I believe there may be some other options out there. We just don't have enough time to prevent continuity of service for our application process if we start trying to look for one now.
Got you. So in the interim, you're going to keep until the current contract with Civic Plus runs out, but you're going to be uploading or transitioning through this company.
Correct. So everything that we have in the current database will migrate over to the new platform. And again, Criterion is the platform that Civic HR has recommended for all of their clients to transition over to.
Understood. With that, I yield.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, if I could make a point.
Yes, sir.
I know that the contract is currently with legal review, but generally, and I've stated this before, that we are prohibited from entering into multi-year contracts unless we have a provision that allows us to make it subject to appropriations or allows us to terminate within a certain 30 days notice or something like that. We have to have one of those provisions in order to do multi-year. Don't bind future commissions.
Has this been brought to you before?
We've had this issue before in other contracts. I'm sure that this will be picked up in the legal review process that is going through now. We've done that process. I just want, since that item was discussed,
Thank you. Yes,
wanted
sir.
to make everybody.
Anyone? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Next.
Okay, we will pivot back down to number 27, which begins with our policies. The first one is policy regarding attorney fees. Commissioner Carthen, do you want to take that?
I do. I believe wholeheartedly that we need to address our attorney's fee policy. We actually just don't have one. Again, policies and procedures allow for this board to work in equality. That way we're not pushing any elected official or any employee out there. We have a policy which we abide by, and in that way it's clean, right? There is no picking and choosing. There's no Republican, Democrat, whoever's the chair, whoever's not the chair. All of that is eliminated when you have a policy. So I did talk to our chairman in all honesty and transparency, and he's asked that, you know, we look at this again. He's not opposed to it. He's just not for it in its common state. So we put these, we bring these policies before the Board of Commissioners in the past and current, so everybody gets a chance to look at it, and so that we put forth the best possible legislation, so that we as a board can agree on it. So with that being said, since the chairman hasn't totally looked at it, hasn't put in his comments, and I don't believe Commissioner Dobbs has, or Commissioner Alcaraz either, I would ask that we table this until our next meeting in January, so that we can look at this holistically between all four of the commissioners. And with that, Chairman, I yield. So there's a motion to table it on the floor.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
My right hand is raised.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next.
Next is the policy regarding the vice chair appointment. Commissioner Carthen.
Sure. So beforehand, when we instituted that we would have a vice chair, the board did not state specifically how long the position would be or when we would implement it. And so with me, we voted for it in 2021, was it? 2021? 2021, but I didn't assume the position until this year, which is 2023. So moving forward, we need to implement that into the policy. So therefore, that's why we brought it forward. That way, whoever comes in to this position, they will know that they will take office the following year for that the vote takes place, and that it will then align with how we vote. So that's the only change to that policy, and I'm hopeful that this Board of Commissioners would agree with that, and we will have a resolution on the agenda tomorrow to vote in favor or against it. With that, Chairman, I yield.
I'd vote for you.
No, this is not a vote for me. This is a vote for the policy.
I know what it's about, but I'd vote for you because I enjoy arguing with you. But, okay, any comments?
No.
Next.
Number 29 is resolution to adopt an amended policy regarding purchasing cards. Vice Chair.
I'm going to yield that one to Attorney Coleman. We worked together on this one.
Thank you, Vice Chair, Chairman. This resolution really a cleanup of have with respect to card program. We conducted a card program, policies that were in place, agreements that were in place, made several recommendations, reducing the number of card programs to the extent that we have card programs in addition to the P card program, that they all be governed by one single agreements be uniform with respect to cards. Some enforcement opportunities are beefed up as a result of the change. So those are highlight of the primary thing. All the one policy beefed up. Those are some.
Attorney Coleman,
Sorry.
I believe something wrong with your mic. It's like going in and out.
Okay.
Am I the only one that
I
catch
apologize.
feedback like that?
I'll speak a little bit more closely to the mic. So again, Commissioners, the major changes that this new resolution and a new program brings about includes the elimination of as many cards as possible, to the extent that we have more cards than the P card, that they all be governed by one policy, that we not have multiple policies that are inconsistent, et cetera. That we have an agreement, and we make sure we have an agreement from each card holder that they're going to abide by the policy, and the enforcement provisions of the policy have been enhanced. So those are some of the changes that we've made with the suggested revision of the P card program, and this resolution will give us the opportunity to implement those revisions. Happy to respond to any questions that you might have.
Comment, questions?
Okay. Number 30 is authorization to engage with a consultant to perform contract and data analysis to be completed in 60 days and not to exceed $10,000 to be funded by the county administration budget, and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents pending final legal review. Tiffany Stewart Stanley.
Good morning, Chairman, Board of Commissioners. I have a very brief PowerPoint. I don't want to scare anybody. It's very brief. So I am before you today as part of our strategic plan. Policy and procedure review is something that we have been focusing on. Organizational development is a big priority for the county administration team at this point. One of the things that we've been tasked with is to look at contract and data analysis. What we want to do is make an assessment. We want to collect and examine all quantifiable procurement and contracting data to determine if there are any disparities in our process. What this assessment will do, it will provide county leaders with accurate and timely information so that we can make decisions, and that the Board of Commissioners may make decisions that will efficiently and effectively address the needs of our community. And one of the things that we'll also do is ensure two of our core values, transparency and inclusivity. This is in line with our strategic plan under two areas: economic development. One of the things that we want to do according to our strategic plan is to identify and work to remove obstacles targeting economic opportunity enhancement and sustainability in areas such as local procurement. It also falls under Transform Douglas County. We are always working to continuously improve our process effectiveness, and one of the things this will do, it will allow us to strengthen the use of data-informed decision-making through regular data collection, evaluation, and distribution. So the process will include engaging a consultant. That consultant will have 60 days to go through the process. This is not to exceed $10,000, and it will be funded by the county administration budget. And so at this time, I'll yield for any questions.
Good.
Thank you.
That concludes our agenda items, Chairman.
Okay, we have board appointments. That's to be discussed at executives. Are there any commissioner comments? Vice Chair.
There was a gentleman in the audience who brought up the absentee policy and the succession policy, which were discussed, but were not on the agenda, and I just wanted to address them with him. Although I have not talked to the gentleman, I wanted to assure him that the absentee policy and the succession policy, I did have a discussion with our chairman, and I was told for the absentee policy that I didn't have the votes for it, but let me just say this. It is incumbent upon whoever sits in these seats regardless of who you see up here now, whoever sits in these seats needs to understand that coming to these meetings and being present and reading the material and asking pertinent questions and showing up is part of the job. You should not take the job if you have more things on your plate that would prevent you from actually representing the constituents who either put you in the position or in some instances you were appointed to the position, right? So this doesn't have anything to do with one person. It really has to do with whoever is coming up who will sit on this dais. Being absent and deciding to shrug off any of these meetings, whether they are the BOC work session, the BOC voting session, or the planning and zoning voting sessions, or any other sessions that special call sessions that happen to come before this board, they should not be shrugged off. They should be taken seriously, because whether or not you sit in the seat, you still gonna get a paycheck. Even though the paycheck's small, you still gonna get it, right? But who suffers is your constituents, because your voice is not there. So I am in favor of the absentee policy, ensuring that we have ethics on this board. And so far, we don't have an ethics policy anywhere in our language other than what the state ACCG has provided for us. So that's something that this Board of Commissioners really needs to address, so that people won't take lightly the seats that they decide to run for, or in some instances, the seats that you are appointed for. So that's regarding the absentee policy. That's why it's not on the agenda to be voted on. The secession policy. Again, almost every Board of Commissioners in the state of Georgia has a secession policy. We do not. Now, I take full responsibility for being on this board and trying to push the secession policy so that the governor doesn't have to do it for us, right? Now, I'm not, dinging the governor for anything. He put in place who he saw fit to put in place, and it's because we did not have a secession policy, period, point blank. That's on this Board of Commissioners. We need to look at having a secession policy. We need to take it to our legislative delegation down at the Capitol, and we need to put one in place so that this never happens again. I'm not against Chairman Miller for being here. I'm not against Dobbs for being here. They were appointed by the governor, but had we had a secession plan, who was appointed would have better reflected the will of the citizens who voted prior to Madam Chair and Henry Mitchell being sat down. So again, those two policies I still feel strongly about. I still feel as though they should be discussed and implemented. But I just wanted to put that out there so that that gentleman would know that we did not just all willy-nilly take them off. And with that, Chairman, I yield.
Thank you. Any comments? Attorney Coleman, do we need to go into executive session?
Mr. Chairman, we do need to go into executive session for real estate, personnel, and potential litigation.
I move that we go into executive session for personnel, real estate,
and litigation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Right hand raised.
We will now adjourn to the work session and move into the executive session.